I'm doing object-oriented programming very slowly because this is a critical topic, right? Critical topic where you usually it's difficult for someone understand these concepts alone, right? Not like control structures and so on. Okay, right. So far we have discussed these concepts. Uh, what is a class? What is an object? And of course, attributes and behaviors. Attributes map into instance variables and class variables. Behaviors map into instance method and class methods. And also we discuss what is constructor, right? And then we discuss last class what is encapsulation, data hiding, and of course abstraction, right? Abstraction, right? So now today we are going to look at association. Okay. So then we'll move on to inheritance and polymorphism. So then we are done. Okay. So remember in semester 3, you have a subject called object-oriented system analysis and design. So most of the time when we develop software, we use object-oriented concepts. Okay, so therefore this is critical. Right, association. So let me open the note. Fine. So what is mean by association? Remember we discussed that objects can message other objects. An object can message or communicate with another object. Why do we communicate? Why object communicate with the other object? Because it needs some help. Needs some help. So get it something done by that object. Because as part of doing your task, you may need some other object's help. So then, can object get the help of any other object? No. Object can't communicate with all the other objects. Object can communicate with another object if there's an association between those two classes. Right? Simple as that. So association means something like friendship. ආශ්‍රයක් කියන්නේ අපි සංගමයක්. Right? So an object can't communicate with the other object unless there's an association relationship between those two classes. Okay. So that is how you design object-oriented software. Okay. So if class A has an association with class B, then object of class A can message an object of class B. In other words, object of class A can get the help or service of object of class B. That is, if class A has, now I use two terms, class, object. When class A is associated with class B, object of class A can call with the service of object of class B. But if you don't have association, then you don't have that capability for the objects. So association has direction and multiplicity. And association has direction. Association has the multiplicity. So direction can be either unidirection or bidirection. So if you understand this in the very first time, so that it will be really beneficial for you, right? Unidirectional, bidirectional. So what is mean by unidirectional? Say class A is associated with class B, but class B is not associated with class A. Okay, so then we say it's unidirectional association. In other words, object of class A can message object of class B and get something done, but object of class B cannot message object of class A and get something done. So this way it is not possible if it is unidirectional. Okay. So there are situations that is how you design our software. Okay. For example, account object can call behavior of logging so that it can log the particular transaction, but logging object can't get the service of account object. So that means account is associated with logging object, but not logging class associated with account object. So think about practical situations, right? For example, manager can assign some task to a worker and get it done, but worker can't assign task to manager and get it done by manager. So then it is unidirectional. But if it is like two friends where A can get some help from B, B can get help from A, so then it is bidirectional. Okay. So A object can call behaviors of B object, but not B object can call behaviors of A object. Is it clear? Obviously, if it is bidirectional, now in engineering, because we like simplicity, so sometimes you might expect if it is unidirectional like this, then bidirectional it should be like this, both arrows, A to B, B to A. But for simplicity, if no arrow, that means bidirectional. So sometimes you may get confused initially, right? So no arrow means bidirectional. That means no arrow is equivalent to both arrows. Otherwise, you need only one arrow. So this is unidirectional. No arrow means something like this, but no arrow means bidirectional. But you don't show arrow because it's easier to show no arrows. Okay. So now object of A can message object of B. Object of B can message object of A. Message means call methods, get service. Now you must be pretty familiar with the terminology. Object-oriented terminology. If you have done this in a serious manner with coding, okay? So then the multiplicity. So you can have one-to-one association, one-to-many associations, and many-to-many association. So we will further discuss these things in database subject in semester 2 also, where one-to-one relationship, one-to-many relationship, many-to-many relationship. So one-to-one association means one object of A is associated with one object of B, and one object of B is associated with one object of A. Again, it can be unidirectional or bidirectional. Those are independent concepts. Direction is one concept, uni or bi. Multiplicity is a different concept. One to one, one to many, many to many. So therefore, there are 3 into 2, 6 possibilities. Unidirectional one to one, bidirectional one to one. Unidirectional one to many, bidirectional one to many. Unidirectional many to many, bidirectional many to many. Okay. Right. So this is bidirectional one to one. If you have something like this, unidirectional one to one. Okay. So one to one means one instance of A is associated with one instance of B. A can get the help from B, but from one object, a specific object assigned to A. If you have any doubt, you need to ask. Okay, don't worry. I can give you the answers. Otherwise, I can't. I won't be doing this lecture, right? If I don't have the confidence to do that. Right. So this is a one-to-many association. So that means one object of A is associated with many objects of B. So that means A can send message to not just one object of B, many objects of B, which are assigned to A, which are related to A. And many to many means one object of A is associated with many object of B, and one object of B is associated with many object of A. So then it is something like this. Many object of B. Say, let's draw with the other object in red color. Let's draw this like this. And that is one to many, and many object of A can communicate with one object, or one object of B can be associated with many object of B as well. This. So this can communicate with multiple objects. This is many to many. Okay. Right. One to many to many. Right. We are not going to look at all six possibilities, right? One to one unidirection, one to one bidirection, one to many unidirection, one to many bidirection, one to one, sorry, many to many unidirection, many to many bidirection. So out of these six, we are going to look at only few scenarios. Other scenarios you will learn by yourself, and also in other, when you move on to object-oriented SAD and so on, you will get more exposure to those. So let's look at the easiest possibility, unidirectional one-to-one, right? Unidirectional one-to-one. So that means something like this class, unidirectional one-to-one. So that means a object of A is associated with one object of B. So therefore, A object can communicate with one object of B, but B object can't communicate with object of A because it's unidirectional. So how to develop if you have this kind of a relationship? First, think about what are these kind of associations in reality, because we develop software for real world. Forget about the software. Just think about real world scenario like this. Forget about software. There is one object of A is associated with one object of B. Not many. Not many. So maybe A1 is associated with B1. A2 is associated with B2. A3 is associated with B3. But A3 is not associated with both B2 and B3. But at the same time, B3 is not associated with A3. That means A3 can get the help of B3, but not B3 can get the help of A3. Okay. So these are a little bit rare because it's one to one. Common thing is one to many. Can you think of a practical scenario? Don't worry, it may be correct, it may be not correct, maybe it's a good example, not that good, somewhat okay. Because ultimately it's not your ability to remember things that matter. It's ability to imagine things, ability to face challenges, that is what ultimately matter. Anyone? Just two type of classes you need to tell me. So that object can call behaviors of this object, but not the other way. But one to one. I don't need software example. I need just story. Something you have seen in day-to-day life, house, home environment, office environment, in the roadside, just a story, fancy thing. I don't need a software example. So I'm just checking whether is there at least one or two you can imagine things. Because imagination is the most important thing for the intellectualism. No one, as usual. If you can imagine one example, then you can imagine hundreds of similar examples. So imagine the first one is the difficulty. Then you will see there are similar cases in different domains. So let's say there's something like a car race. Car race. So then we have drivers. Driver one is associated with car one. So driver one can start car one, accelerate because that driver's car. If you take another driver, so driver two has another different car. Car two, driver two can control car two, but car cannot control driver. Right? Driver can control car, but not car can control driver. It's one-to-one unidirectional association. I gave you the opportunity to think, but no one gave me a. I was not expecting the same example, something like that. Okay. Now you can think of hundreds of examples, right? When I give one example, similar examples. But important thing is when you are given the opportunity to think about it. Okay. Right. So this is how you code it. Right? This is how you code it. So let's code it. So let me open IntelliJ. So I will speed up after finishing object oriented, but I don't want to do object orientations fast because I know how critical this topic is. So let me delete this. Okay, let me copy this, okay, because I need to share this code with semester 3 students. So let me delete this. Okay, shall we take the example like car and driver, rather than A and B? It make more sense to you, right? Right. Let's say I have a class called car. Of course, this is not a software, this is a story. And I have another class called driver. Right. So now what I want to make sure is driver can be assigned a car, right? Car. So that means your driver has a car. So I say car, let's call it C. C. So this is unidirectional one-to-one association. Because now driver has a car, but car doesn't have a driver. You can see car doesn't have a driver, but driver has a car. Then someone will ask, if driver has a car, how do you say that car doesn't have a driver? No, this is association, right? So this is driver can control a car object, but car cannot control a driver object. That is how you look at it. Okay. That means car cannot call behaviors of the driver object or a driver object, but driver object can call the behaviors of a car object. Right. So this simple as that. Now let's add some data, some attributes. Say car has, okay, say string car ID. string S capital. So there's a Boolean variable is started. Say by default false. And maybe my speed, just building a story. And I have behavior, car has a behavior start. Void start. So there I will change the started into true because it started. And let's say we have another behavior called stop. Okay. Let's set this to 0. And I will add one more method, void increase speed. So I will increase the speed by 10, right? Every time you increase, speed is incremented by 10, okay? And just building a story, speed plus C equal 10. But obviously you can increase speed if your car is started, okay? Car is started. So therefore I'll do it because I want to make it realistic. If is started, then you do this. Otherwise, nothing will happen. The accelerator පෑගොඩට එන්නේ start නැති වාහනේ. Right. So I think we have enough methods to make it interesting. Now let's say driver. Driver object will get a car object. But we need to assign the car object, okay? We don't give by default a car to the driver. We can assign that, okay, this is your car for this car race. Right. So then let's say driver has some more attributes, say string name. And let's have a method so that we can assign the car to the driver. That is the best practice rather than creating a car object here. Let's call it set or assign car or set car. Set car, you get a car object. Now serious object oriented programming. Say void. Now I can say C equal, this is this C, right? This is parameter. This is the instance variable. If you want to refer to the instance variable, you must say this dot. Otherwise, you are referring to the parameter. So therefore, I say this dot C equals C. So now you have, now by calling this, we can assign a car to the driver. Okay. Change the code after code. Yes, that's a good thing, right? Yeah, I completely forgot about this. Stop, we need to change it to started false. Yes, I forget about that, right? Sorry for that time. Yeah, now it's correct, right? Now in the stop method, I have changed the started to false. And maybe I can do one more thing here. Can someone tell me some one more thing to do here? If you are a critical thinker, you can tell me one more common sense thing to do in my stop method. I will give you 1 minute to think. Right, set the speed to 0. Correct. So that means you are thinking. Okay. So let's change the speed to 0 because when you stop, car must decelerate and stop. Right. So that is even better now, right? Right. So now I have the set car method. Okay. Say driver now can drive the car. Drive the car because driver has a car. Okay, driver has a car. That means driver can control the car, but car cannot control a driver because car is alone, right? Right. So let's write a test code. say test driver, the main method. Right, so we'll create a driver object. Say d1 equal new driver. දවල් ඉදෙනකොට මේක නේ විකාරයක්ද මන් දන්නේ නැහැ. මම තව චුට්ටක් ඕන UI කෝඩ් එකක් පෙන්නන්න ස්විං වලින් ලියමු. මේවත් විකාරද ලියලා තියෙන කියලා හරි. Right, driver. So I'll set driver's name Nimal. Let's say D1 driver 1. I will create another driver. D2. Right, I'll create two cars and one will be assigned to the driver 1, other one will be assigned to driver 2. Car C1 equal new car. If you have any doubts or if you want anything to clarify, let me know, okay? Now let's have another car. And I will assign car 1 to driver 1, car 2 to driver 2. Say D1 dot set car C1. Of course, if you want, you can set C2 to driver 1. That is up to you. D2 dot set car C2. Now, let's say I want to say this is a computer game or something. Right? So 2 players. Now the player 1 start the car. Player 1 is your driver 1. I can say D1 dot, maybe it's when you click on a button in your remote control or whatever, okay, gamepad. Say start. Sorry. Of course, driver 1 cannot start. Okay. How do you do that? Say driver 1, I will say drive. Okay, so let's go to the driver and do at this, because you are the driver, right? You are not the car. Okay, you are not the car. So let's say you want to start. Say void, because driver want to start, right? Driver want to start. Maybe it's a race. Right? Start the race. So when you start the race, what driver does is start the car. Because starting the race for driver means starting the car. C dot start. Now you can see. So now driver can get the help of the car. Driver can call behaviors of get the service of the car, because every driver is assigned a car. Or every driver can be assigned a car. So when drivers start the race, basically they start their cars or their car. So when the race is stopped, basically they stop their car, respective car. So when the driver want to accelerate, maybe they can, what is the method we have for car? Increase speed method. So let's have a decrease speed method also. Again, it can be done if started. Started only. So let's say we reduce by 10. Right. So now driver increase speed. Accelerate means increase the speed of the car. Right. Decelerate means you decrease the speed of the car, your car. Okay. Now I have my test board. This is just a story only. So now my driver can start the car or start the race. So not stop, start the race. Maybe my driver two also start the race. Maybe now D1 do some accelerations. D1, D2 is also doing some acceleration. This is a very primitive example, okay? Maybe D1 is doing further accelerations because I have only the acceleration and deceleration method. Okay. And D2 is also doing some acceleration. Maybe D2 do some deceleration now. Okay, sorry, this is accelerate. Okay, so then further acceleration, but D2 does a deceleration as well. Maybe D2 had some accident or something. So therefore, D2 decided to do some deceleration. Right now, we stop, say, it's not start to end. Time is over, both must stop. Then we will check where they have stopped or how many miles they have traveled. Okay. So now both must stop at the same time. Say driver one, of course, when you stop, what happens? We make that to zero, right? So therefore, before stop, we will take the mileage, right? S out. Uh, driver one, actually driver one means car one, right? Car one. Car one speed. Okay, let's say we check what is the speed at a particular time. Higher speed win the race. Say after 10 minutes, whoever has the higher speed is the winner. Okay, right. So therefore we'll just print the speed of the car one, or we can say driver one because we are not interested in car one. Okay, so therefore let's have another method. Say void speed. Speed of the driver means actually speed of the car of that driver. So therefore I will print uh, respective car's speed, right? So therefore in reality, speed of the driver means speed of the car of that driver. So therefore this is, so let's say get speed, okay? Get speed. And let's say it's return. C return, okay, not void. Let's say speed is what? Integer. Car. Yeah, speed is double. So let's have double. Right. Get speed will return the speed of the car because speed of the driver is speed of the car. C dot speed. Now I'll get the speed of both the drivers and print those. Okay. D1 dot get speed and D2 dot get speed. So this can be customer and account and blah blah blah. Okay, this I just took. And obviously driver one speed must be because driver one has done two accelerations. So therefore driver one's car speed must be 20, whereas driver two speed car speed must be 10 plus 10 20. Then again decrease, it must be 10. So therefore driver one's speed must be 20 by now. Actually it's the car speed. Driver two speed must be 10. Now you can see we work with driver, but actually driver is working with car. That is called association. So car race is about driver because driver is the winner, but actually driver is driving the car. Let's run it. why is 0? Can't be 0, right? Driver 1, no, driver 1 start, driver 1 start. So this was no, driver 2 start, right? Driver 2 start, then driver 1 accelerate, driver 2 accelerate, driver 1 accelerate, driver 2 accelerate. Now it's okay, right? I have not started the driver 2. Okay, right? Now it should be okay, right? Now it's okay, right? Yeah, now it should be okay. Let's run. Right, now it is 20 and 10 because driver 2 has decelerate once, accelerate twice. Whereas driver 1 has only done 2 accelerations without any deceleration. Okay, so this is one-to-one association. So driver is associated with a car, but car is not associated with a driver. Right? That means car cannot control a driver. Driver can control the car, but driver can control only one car at a time. One car at a time, not more than one car. Is it clear? Is it clear? So, ඕකම තමයි පස්සේ. It can be account and customer. It can be form and buttons. For example, form can have many buttons, right? Associations. Okay, right. So this is, I'm not going to show you all 6 possibilities, right? One-to-one, unidirectional, one-to-one, bidirectional, one-to-one, unidirectional, one-to-many, bidirectional, one-to-many, unidirectional, many-to-many. Many-to-many, of course, we are not going to do in semester 1 because it's a little bit, you need more exposure to discuss about many-to-many, but many-to-many is there. Right, so this is one-to-one unidirectional example. Okay. Any questions? So in examples, of course, we refer to it as A and B, but I make it a little bit more practical by calling it rather than A and B, calling it. So this is what happens, right? For example, this is driver test. We call the driver, say start race, then driver call start car, and also driver call after some time accelerate, decelerate. Some more messages are sent, but this is only one message. But in our example, we send some different messages also, right? Right? Not just one message. But remember, A can message B, but B cannot message A because it's a unidirectional association. A has a B, B don't have A. Driver has a car doesn't have a driver. Okay. And only one driver has one car, not many cars. Is it clear? Right, that is called one-to-one one-to-one unidirectional. How to design and code it. Okay, so rather than A and B, I use the words car and driver. Okay, so this is just a simple example, but we did a more comprehensive example. Okay, right. So that is unidirectional one-to-one. Most of the time, what we have is unidirectional. Very rarely we have bidirectional. Very rarely. Right. What about unidirectional one-to-many? So that means one object of A has access to, can control, can call behaviors of many objects of B. One-to-many. But again, unidirectional, that means A can call behaviors of B, but B object cannot call or control A. Right? So how do you code this? First, can you give me a practical example like this? Just like car and driver and car. I don't need technical examples, business examples, just a story type example. Because business examples you will see in semester 3, 4, 5, 6, and your final year project. Just a nice story, nice or whatever. Car, auto, food related thing, or I don't mind whatever the domain you think. People related thing, or anyone? Can't you think? I don't need a perfect because there's nothing called perfect, right? Your imagination is different from my imagination, right? Because you guys are not talking, I'll come up with my imagination. මේ දැන් මේ වෙලාවේ නිකන් ඔළුවට ආපු එකක්. හරි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ කල්පනා කරද්දි මාත් කල්පනා කරනවා. So let's say we have person and task. ඒ උදේ නැගිටිනකොට ආගේ ඔළුවේ තියෙනවා task 10ක් විතර කරන්න ඕන කියලා නේද? You control the task, right? Not task control you, right? Sometimes task control you also, right? But let's assume you control the task. You do the task, not task doing anything to you. That means you can do the task. Okay? You can do the task. So let's model it. Say person, and let's see we have, or maybe we can, let's call this machines or something. You control, say you are a worker. You are a worker in a, say, workshop or something. You need to manage three machines, three or whatever, right? Three or whatever. So you can start the machines, just not like car now, right? You have multiple machines to work with. Some machines are stopped, right? While two machines are running, you can stop one machine. Do like that. That I think that will be better. Okay. So let's say machine. Now, rather than person, I will call this guy operator also. Okay. Because that is even better. Rename. Right. Let's call this person worker. Right. Worker machine. Okay. Now let's say machine has few behaviors. Start. Right. Void start. Start the machine. Right. So start the machine. So let's have a string variable, string state. Initially it's null. Okay. Or empty or whatever. Okay. Okay, let's say empty. So when you start, I will change the state to started. Started. When you stop, I will change the state to stopped. Just let's see only those two methods are there. Okay. Stop. Say by default, it is in the stop state. Okay. It's in the stop state. Right. So that is machine. Now let's go into the worker. Say worker has a name, string name. By default empty. Okay. Empty name. Now let's say worker has, we can assign multiple machine to the worker. So worker supposed to operate these machines. Okay, so how can we keep those set of machines in my worker class? Because worker is going to be associated with maybe two, three machines, five, four machines. So far, rather than say machine one, machine two, machine three, right? If now one possible solution is machine, say M1, machine M2, but that is not the best solution. Why? Because we don't know how many machines are going to be there, right? And also having too many variables is also bad. So for this kind of scenarios, either you can use collections like list, but that is the best actually, but we haven't discussed the collection yet. That is one of the topic later on after object orientation. So therefore we'll have a array. Okay. Say new. Now we have machine array. You can have objects in array also, just like integer array, machine array. Right? New. Okay, so let's not create this array also. Just the array is there. We can set the machines, right? We can set the machines when to the worker later on. Okay. Okay. Right. So now let's have a method also. Just like, okay, let's delete the driver and car and test drive. Right. So just like we have the machine has methods, let's say worker also has a method. Right. Say, let's say worker, uh, at the beginning of the day, worker will start all the machines. When he come to the office, not office actually, the factory, he will start all the machines assigned to him or her. Okay. Right. So that is, say, let's call it start, say void start work. So that is worker start his or her work. What he do? He will start each and every machine. He will start each and every machine. Okay. Right. So how to start each and every machine? Now can you think of how to start each and every machine? Because this is an array. So we can iterate through the array and get one by one machine. Now we are into serious object-oriented programming. Say for, say machine M colon, let's call this M, okay? M, uh, let's call it machines, MS, right? MS, right? So MS is machines. So M is my machine. It will take one by one in this array. And each machine I am going to start. So that is what the worker is doing when he start work. Okay. So then each machine state will change to started. Started. Okay. Okay. So let's write a test case also. I'm not going to add too many methods. Say worker test. Sorry, test worker. Say let's have worker W1 equal new worker. Another worker 2, sorry, worker 2, new worker. Right, so let's assign two machines to worker 1. Right, so let's create two machines. Shall we have machine name also? Every machine has a name. Okay, say string m name. Okay, so machine m1 equal new machine, and let's call this m1 dot name. Or you can use the constructor, right? Let's use the constructor, make it professional. Right? So let's create a constructor, because we have learned those things now. Machine machin. Okay, let's say string name. So then this dot or m name, because we have two different names. Okay, or let's call this m name. So then this dot m name equal m name. Right, so we can give the machine name at the construction type. Right, so let's say this is machine 1. So let's create another machine. Another machine, another machine, and another machine. Okay. So M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. So this is machine 1, machine 2, machine 3, machine 4, machine 5. Okay. Now we are going to give machine 1 to 3 to worker 1. Okay. Machine 4 and 5 to the worker 2. Assign. Okay. So how to do that? Now remember, worker class has a method called, still we have not assigned, given a set machine method. Okay, let's have a method. Say void set machines. Set the machines to the worker. So you get machines array, and let's call the same name also ms. So then this dot ms equal ms. So that is how you set the machines to the worker using set machines method. Now we can do that. So first let's create the machine array. Say m machine array of machines. I will call it ms1 equal new machines array size 2, because arrays you can't change this, you can't create array without size. That is why this is not very good. Very good thing is that use a linked list later. Okay, but I will use size 3 because we are going to assign 3 machines to that guy. 1, 2, 3. That is ms1 0 0 is m1, ms1 1 is my machine 2, and ms1 2 is my machine 3. Right, so those 3 machines are now in ms1 array. I am going to assign this ms1 array to worker 1. Then worker 1 is having 3 machines. w1 dot set machines ms1. So now I have assigned 3 machines to worker 1, because worker 1 can have multiple machines, right? As this, because it's one-to-many association. So similarly, I will create another array and I will assign that to the worker 2. But this time I will create array of 2. This is M4, M5, because I don't want to assign the same machine to the 2 workers, because 1 to 3 is already assigned. Okay, so I'll call this MS2, MS2. Then worker 2, I am going to assign the second array. Okay, second. Now let's say worker 1 has started work. W1 start work, but still worker 2 has not started his work. Now let's have a method in worker class to. So we ask worker, what are the status of your machines? Okay, what are the status of your machines? Right. So let's have a method for that. Say void print machine status. This is our final method. Okay. So what this method does is go through the machine array, that is for loop. Remember, your worker has a machine array, ms. Say machine. I will call it m:ms. ms is your instance variable. Okay. And you will print that machine's name, right? m.name, mname, and its status, m.state, right? So that is print machine status of your machines, because this method is in worker, right? You need to show you what are your status of your machines. Okay. Now let's call that in our test method. So only worker 1 has started the work, right? Worker 2 has not started the work. Okay. So therefore worker 1's machine must be now started. Let's ask worker 1 to set print machine status. And let's ask worker 2 to print machine status also. And obviously worker 1's machine status are all started. Worker 2's machine status, that is machine 4 and 5, must be, right, stopped. And let's see. It should be the case, right? Because worker 2 has not started his work. You can see worker 1's machines are started, but worker 2's machines are stopped because worker 2 has not yet started his work. Now let's say worker 2 has also start his work. So let's have some S out. And now worker 2 has started his work. Worker 2 dot start work. Now if I ask worker 2 to print machine states, okay. Now I will ask both worker 1 and worker 2 to print machine state, okay? Worker 1 and worker 2. Now worker 2 has also started, worker 1 has already started. Right, print machine status, both worker 1 and worker 2. And now all the machines must be started. Right, now all the machines must be in the started state because worker 2 also has started. But worker 2 has access to his machines. Okay. Now all the machines must be in started state. You can see earlier only these three were started, but now all are started. Now, if we have another method like stop work, say worker 2 has stopped his work. So then worker 2's machine 3, 4 and 5 will be again stopped, but still machine 1, 2, 3 are still running. Okay, so anyway, I have not written a method called stop. Stop is there, right? So yeah, shall we have a method for the stop work as well? That is stop. So when he stop work, he basically stop all the machines assigned to him or her. Okay. Now let's have another set of lines. Now let's say worker 1 has stop work, but still worker 2 is now working, right? Worker 2 is working. Now let's print again. Now what happens? Now machine 1, 2, 3 are stopped, but still machine 4 and 5 is running because only worker 1 has stop, not start, stop. Okay. So you can see that each worker is assigned its own machines. He can control his machines. He can't control others' machines. Right now, machine 1, 2, 3 has stopped, but machine 4, 5 is still running. You can see started, but these are stopped now because worker 1 stopped his work. I can see that three machines are given to worker 1, two machines are given to worker 2, but it's 2 or 3 we decide. Right? We decide in our test code because we created assign two machines. If you want, you can assign another machine, then create an array of size 3. Okay. Or you can remove one of the machine from worker 2 and add it to worker 1. So those are possible. Okay. But it's easier if you have a linked list rather than array because we can easily add and remove. Okay. Now you must have a little bit of understanding about what is one-to-one association, what is one-to-many association. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? I only discuss about unary relation, unary, sorry, uh, unidirectional, right? Unidirectional. So then we can extend it. Now you can see it in a loop we can call. So worker start all the machines, something like that. Or worker can access any of the object and do it, right? Not all the objects. එයාට පුළුවන් ඕන එයාට තියෙන machine වලින් එකක් විතර stop කරන්න. That is up to the worker. Okay. So now we can see that A has access to many B objects, sending message to each and every object or selected object. Okay, so that is possible. Right? So in reality, we can do this. Right? For example, if the bank has 100 accounts, we can add interest to each and every account object. Each and every account object. So then you need to call it one by one for each and every account object, because bank is associated with many accounts. Right. So here we use abstract with AB, but in this session I use little bit more practical approach, work and machine. Okay. So then you can extend this to bidirectional one-to-one, bidirectional one-to-many, and finally unidirectional many-to-many and unidirectional bidirectional many-to-many. But I am not interested in these things much in semester 1. Right? Just I have given you an example, but I am not going to do the coding for this. Right? If you have understood up to this point, it is more than enough. Okay, more than enough. Now this is just for your information, bidirectional one-to-one. So that means A can control B, or A can call behaviors of one B object, and B object can call the behaviors of A object, but one. So that means A can call behaviors of B object. A object can call the behaviors of B object, right? At the same times, right? B object can call behaviors of, now we can see here, B object can call behaviors of A object. So that means like two friends. Nimal can get help from Kamal. Kamal can get help from Nimal whenever they need. Okay. So we can have this kind of a possibility in our classes. Okay. Classes. So this is an example, but I'm not going to do that example with you. Maybe you can do it by yourself if you are curious, if you are interested. Okay. Then you need to set B object to A or A object to B, depending on what kind of a thing you are doing. Okay. What kind of a thing you are doing. And see this, that is why we have two tests. This is testing whether A to B association. This is testing B to A association. So here A is assigned a B object. Here B is assigned a A object. Both are possible, but it doesn't mean that we do that same time. Very rarely we do that at the same time, but for different scenarios, yes. Right. Okay. Different scenarios, yes. Sometimes in the same scenario also that can happen, right? A වැඩක් කියනවා B ට. දැන් B ඒකේ වැඩේ කර කර ඉන්න. හැබැයි B ට ආයි ඒකෙන් help එකක් ඕන වැඩේ කරන්න. ඒතකොට ඒ help එක අරගෙන එයා වැඩේ කළා ආයි ඒකට කියනවා. හැබැයි ඒකෙන් ආයි help එකක් ගත්තා. එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන්. කියන්නේ A කියනවා B ට වැඩක් කරලා දෙන්න කියලා. මෙහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So A කියනවා, so let's say this is A object, ask B to do something, B object, and then B asks do something for me, but why B asks that? Because he needs that part to complete your task. So then he can return you. කියනවා කියනවා A කියනවා B ට අනේ මේ කමිස මහලා දෙන්න කියලා. ඒතර B කියනවා හරි මම කමිස මහනවා. හැබැයි කමිස භාගෙට මහලා කියනවා අනේ මට මේකේ බොත්ත මහලා දෙන්න. ඔයා එතකොට මම ආයි ඊටු ටික මහලා දෙන්න. ඒතර ආයි කමිස මහන්න දුන්නාට පස්සේ මේක මට කියන තමයි බොත්ත මහලා ගත්තා. හැබැයි මේක කමිස මහලා දෙනවා මට. හරි. So that is A call B, B call A also. Okay. So that is possible. Or else when I call B, B doesn't call me, but when B need help, B call me. Into this is something like this. Right? This is something like this. Right? So all these possibilities are there. But this is the more common possibility. Okay. And similarly, it can be one to many. Right? This is one to one bidirectional. Right? Right. So again, I have given you code, but I'm not going to explain those things in detail. Okay. Then of course, many to many association. Right? One object of A is associated with many object of B. One object of B is associated with many object of A. දැන් මෙහෙම දේවල් සාමාන්‍ය ලෝකේ තියෙනවා නම් මට කෝඩ් කරන්නත් වෙනවා. Right? Student can assign register for many courses. Course has many students. Possible, right? Many to many. Many to many. Right? Don't worry too much about that, okay? Right? So this is just an exercise. Anyway, these kind of questions they don't ask from you in semester 1 exam, but definitely in semester 3 object-oriented analysis and design. Can someone tell me what is your best answer for this? Anyway, there's nothing called best answer. It depends on The way you look at it. Anyone? What is your answer? Actually, there are not one answer. There are the way you look at it. Of course, there are multiple answers, but possibly you can come up with two possible answers if you are very practical. Anyone? So that means bidirectional. One customer is associated with zero or many orders. One order is associated with one customer and bidirectional. That means customer can control order, order can control customer. Or customer can call order behaviors, order can call customer behaviors. This is one-to-one unidirectional. This is one-to-one, but this is optional. Again, unidirectional. Sorry, bidirectional. This is bidirectional one-to-many, but optional one-to-many. This is bidirectional one-to-one. කෝඩ් එකක් කියනවා ගිහිල්ලා සිංග එකට ගිහිල්ලා කෝඩ් එකක් දානවා ෆ්‍රිජ් එකට ඕන ගියේ. ඔන්න ඔකට කෝඩ් එකක් කියන්නේ. කෝඩ් එකක් කියන බාද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ. සිංග එකේ කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක්. Anyone? උත්තර කියන්නට අත. So obviously one order is associated with one customer, right? එහෙම orders දාන්න බෑනේ දෙන්නෙක් ඇවිල්ලා එකම washing machine එකට order එකක් දාලා යන්නේ නැහැ. So therefore it can't be customer to order side customer side can be many, can't be many. එහෙම තියෙනවනේ අයින් කළා දාන්න. Zero to many නේ. Zero to many. Right? So when you give an order, there's nothing, customer can have many orders, right? මම උදේ ගිහිල්ලා order කරනවා washing machine එක. ඊළඟ මාසේ ගිහිල්ලා order කරනවා මගේ customer details තියෙනවා සිග එකේ. ඊළඟ මාසේ order කරනවා Starlink connection එකක්. එතකොට multiple orders නේ. Right? So therefore it's not one to one, right? It can be one to many. It can't be one to one. Okay. So then I have only this one. Can it be zero? Yes, customer is there, still no order. Can be. Right? Can be. And from customer, I need order details. Yes. Add order, cancel order. Yes. Customer පුළුවන් වෙන order එකක් cancel කරන්න වගේ දේවල්. Maybe from by looking at the order, we want to find out who is the customer. What is the customer's contact number? නැත්නම් මේ order එක deliver කරන්න ගියාම තියෙන customer ගේ details. So from order, we must be able to access customer details. Therefore, yes, I prefer one bidirectional. And of course, one order has only one customer, but one customer can have many orders. I'll go for it. No, මේක එහෙම තමයි design කරන්න ඉතින් හරි software developers ලා. ඒගොල්ලෝ sure නැත්නම් ඒගොල්ලෝ අහනවා. ඒක customer කෙනෙක්ට orders ගොඩක් තියෙන ඒක අහන්න දෙයක් නැහැ ඉතින් හරි. Orders නැති customers ලා ඉන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා අහනවා. ඒකට කියනවා ඌ අපි සමහරවිට customer add කරාට order එක cancel වෙලා හරි යා order එකක් දෙන්නේ නැත්නම් අපි customer record එක තියාගෙන ඉන්නවා. Right? So the answer is A, right? Right. So don't worry too much about this. If you have time, do this. Right. So that's it about association. Okay. So now we are done with association. Right. So let's move on to inheritance. Okay. So this is the easier part. Then polymorphism is, that is the peak, most difficult part to understand. Okay. But association and polymorphism are the more advanced concept. Inheritance is the easiest to understand. Okay. Right. So let me open the note. Right. So we'll look at what is inheritance and what is overriding, calling the construction hierarchy, abstract classes and abstract methods, final classes and final methods. Okay. Right. What is mean by inheritance? So the word inheritance coming from biology. Okay. For example, child inherit from parents. In animals, not only animals, even trees, right? Trees, there's inheritance. Okay. So that is, for example, you may have not may have, you must have inherited some features from your father, your mother. Some of those are biological, some of those are sociological, like the surname. Some of those are legal, right? That is called inheritance. But in software development, programming, inheritance is not the exactly same thing. So first thing is, yes, there's a small similarity. But at the same time, software level, program level inheritance is not the same as biological inheritance or sociological inheritance. You need to understand both similarities and dissimilarities between biological inheritance and object-oriented inheritance. And therefore, some people don't like the word inheritance also because inheritance gives you misleading, make you mislead sometimes if you are not very serious. So therefore, in software development, we prefer the word rather than inheritance, specialization and generalization. Specialization and generalization. Okay. Actually, I also prefer to use the word specialization, generalization rather than inheritance because inheritance gives you a lot of, it's very misleading in some cases. Okay. Right. So what is inheritance in programming, object-oriented programming? Because we are not interested in biological inheritance. So inheritance in object-oriented programming means we can create hierarchy of classes like this. Like this, okay? Hierarchy of classes. And when you create hierarchy of classes, the classes below the hierarchy, we call them subclasses, get some attributes and behaviors from the superclasses. Get, inherit. So that is called inheritance in object-oriented programming. Okay. So the similarities, yes, subclasses inherit attributes and behaviors from superclass, but there's a difference also in biological inheritance, right? For example, child is made by parent. Child is a product of the parent, right? But in software development, object orientation, D is not produced by B. D is just a special case of B. So therefore, that is the difference. That is a big difference between biological inheritance and object-oriented inheritance. In biological inheritance, child is born from with the help of the parent. But in object-oriented inheritance, D object is not created by B object. Just D is a special case of B. That's it. D objects are special cases of B objects. It's not D's parent is B. That is why we don't like the word parent and child. Rather, we like supertype and subtype. Supertype, subtype. That make more sense. So rather than inheritance, we prefer to use the word generalization, specialization. Rather than parent and child, we prefer to use the word supertype and subtype. Software engineers. Okay. Right. So this is an example from real world rather than software. Right. Special case of animal is mammal. Mammal can ക്ഷീരപായി. Another special case is bird. And special case of mammals include dogs, cats, lions. And special case of birds involve parrot and pigeon. So you can clearly see that dog is not the child of the mammal. No, dog is not a child of mammal. Dog is a special case of mammal. That is why we don't like the word child and parent. Rather super type, subtype. Okay. So when you learn something, learn the correct thing, right? Not something, correct thing, so that you can use it in a proper way. And when you look at from bottom to top, you call it generalization. Mammal is a general case of dog, cats, and lion. Animal is a general case of mammal, birds, and so on. And if you look at it from bottom to top, sorry, top to bottom, we can call it specialization. Mammal is a special case of animal. Dog is a special case of a mammal. Okay. So what does subtype inherit? What does subclass inherit from parent and its parents or its supertypes? Subtype inherit non-private attributes and behaviors. Non-private. Subclass does not inherit everything from your supertypes because private things are not inherited. If it is non-private, yes, subtype inherit. Not only you inherit from your supertype, immediate supertype, right? For example, super savings account class inherit from savings account class. Not only that, it inherit from account class as well. For example, account number is in account class, assume it is not private. So then super savings account also has account number. And super savings account also has a deposit method. Okay. And of course, super savings account has attribute called interest rate, assume those are non-private. And add the interest behavior. So what do you inherit? Non-private attributes and behaviors from supertypes and its supertypes, supertypes. Attributes and behaviors. Why do you create this kind of class hierarchies? Code reusability. Otherwise, you need to write the same attributes, behaviors in different classes. Rather, it's easier to say super savings account extend from savings account. Then you only write the special things in your class. So then you can create this object, this object, this object. This object has these features. Savings account object have these features plus these features. Super savings account object has these, and these features. Assuming those are all non-private. Otherwise, you will have these three classes and say balance is duplicated in all three. But here you don't need to have balance because you inherit it. It's code reusability, better reusable, maintainable code. Okay, reusable, maintainable code. If someone asks what is the purpose of inheritance, code reusability, better maintainability. So better maintainability means rather than you go and change in multiple places, you just go and change one place. So all the inherited classes get the new updated feature. Otherwise, you need to go and here and there and do the changes, right? And reusability you can already understand, right? So this attribute is reusable in these classes. This behavior is reusable in all these classes. Now, when you are learning this kind of topics, you need to do slow thinking. Slow thinking. Keep asking, and you need to be a critical thinker. You need to be a critical thinker. Okay. So your greatest enemy when you learn this kind of topic is your greatest enemies. You may feel like you have understood. You may feel like I have understood it. I have understood it perfect. But in reality, you have not understood. So how do you know that you have not understood it? You talk to someone who know this subject A to Z, and all of a sudden you will find that you are in trouble now. You are in trouble now. Okay. That is how you understand that you haven't understood because your inner self try to convince you that you have understood. Why? Then, just like you, your inner self is also lazy. So when it convince you that you have understood it, then you don't ask it to think more. So it likes to relax. So your brain like to relax rather than think. Okay. So therefore your brain will cheat you saying that you have understood. But in reality, you haven't understood. So then how do you know that? You do exercise, you do quizzes, you talk to someone who is better, has a better understanding about that so that he or she can challenge you. Now all of a sudden your brain need to accept that no, yes, there's something more to understand. Let's work on that. Right. So that is how it works. It's a game. For obvious things, no issue, right? When your brain says understood, yes, you have understood, but not for this kind of advanced things. These are advanced things, okay. බැලුබැලමට එහෙම ඇඩ්වාන්ස් නැහැ. කරන්න ගියාම හිර වෙනවා. එහෙම නැති හැමෝම ෆයිනල් ඉයර් software development project එක කරගෙන 150කට software development project එක කරගෙන තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. IT degree ගන්න 130ක් විතර job එකකට apply කරන්නේ නැහැ. degree එක ගත්ත කයගේ මම නොගත්ත අය අමතක කරමු. 130ක් 40ක් ඉන්නවා job වලට apply කරන්නේ නැහැ. job එකට apply කරාට interview ආවට යන්න බයයි. මොකද එයාගේ ඇඟ ඇතුලෙන් දන්නවා මට ඔය කියන තරම් confidence එකක් නැහැ කියලා. එදාට පිළිගන්නවා. කම්මැලිකම හිටියට මොකද ඉන්ටර්විව් එක හිටනම් අද පිළිගන්නවා. එහෙම ගියොත් මම නෝන්ඩි වෙයි කියලා. හරි. මොකද යථාර්ථයට කොයි වෙලාවකරි මුහුණ දෙන්න ඕනේ. අපිට කොයි වෙලාවකරි මැරෙන්න වෙනව නේද? ඒ වගේ තමයි. ඉන්ටර්විව් එකට කලින් දවස් තමයි යථාර්ථය පිළිගන්න තියෙන එක නෑ. ඒට එක්ක නොගිහින් ඉන්නවා. එතකන් ආතල් එකේ ඉන්න මම උපාධිධාරියා ආර්කයි මේකයි ඕව වැඩද software development nothing. හරි. ඊට පස්සේ දන්නවා හදිසියක් තේරෙනොත් එහෙම ගිහිල්ලා දැන් වැඩ කරන්නත් වෙනවා. වැඩ කරන්න තරම් මට එහෙම confidence එකක් නැහැ. එහෙම අය ඉන්න සමාජයේ ඕන තරම්. Right. So why code reusability and maintainability? Right. Reusability and maintainability. Because subtypes reuse the code of supertypes, attributes and behaviors, non-private attributes and behaviors. And also inheritance provide a basis for polymorphism as well. Right. It doesn't mean that polymorphism always require inheritance, but inheritance also facilitate polymorphism. Without inheritance also we can use polymorphism, but with inheritance also you can use polymorphism. So therefore, indirectly it help facilitate polymorphism as well. But polymorphism we'll discuss separately. I told you this is the most advanced concept in object-oriented programming. Okay. Right. So how do you implement inheritance in Java? We use the keyword extends. Extends. So class B extends class A. That means we have class A and class B. Class B has extend. This is the notation we use for inheritance. Association, this or this, open, but this is close. Inheritance. Okay. B inherit from A. So that means my B class has X method, Y method, and Z method. Z method because B class has Z method, X and Y method because you inherit. And these are not private. If it is private, you don't inherit. So therefore, when you create A object, right, you can call X method and Y method. But you can't call Z method because A class doesn't have Z method. But if you create B object, you can call X method, Y method, and Z method. X and Y by inheritance, Z because it's in your class. Same for the attributes. If you have any attributes here, only those attributes can be accessed from A. But B can access these attributes plus any attribute here, as long as these are not private. Okay. So how to make it private? There's a keyword called private. You just add private keyword before the method, right? That we will discuss after polymorphism. We have a topic called access modifiers. Okay. So there we will discuss that in detail. Okay. For the time being, just use the private keyword. PRIVATE, all simple. Remember, we did use that private keyword in data hiding also, right? We made attributes private so that other objects cannot access it. That is, prevent associated object access it. This is private, not only prevent associated objects access it, private prevent your inherited classes access it. ඔයාගේ ප්‍රයිවට් දේවල් ඔයාගේ යාළුවන්ටත් ඇක්සස් කරන්න බෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඇසෝසියේටඩ් ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් වලට ඇක්සස් කරන්න බෑ. ඒක ප්‍රයිවට්. නෑ උඹ යම්ගේ යාළුවා වුණාට මට ඔබට උදව්වක් කරලා දෙන්නම්. හැබැයි ඔබට මගේ බැංකු පොත දෙන්න බෑ. මම ඔබට උනා රුපියල් 1000ක් දෙන්නම්. රුපියල් 10000ක් දෙන්නම්. හැබැයි මගේ බැංකු පොත මට ප්‍රයිවට්. මගේ පාස්වර්ඩ් එක ඉල්ලන්න එපා. මගේ පාස්වර්ඩ් එක දෙන්න බෑ. ඒක ප්‍රයිවට්. යාළුවා වුණාට ඒක දෙන්න බෑ. හරි. පුතා දෝ වුණාට පාස්වර්ඩ් එක ඉල්ලන්න එපා. ඔන්න ප්‍රයිවට් ඒවා ඉන්හෙරිට් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. association object වලට access කරන්න බෑ private කරාම data height. මේ සාමාන්‍ය ලෝකේ තියෙන කතන්දරම තමයි තියෙන්නේ. Okay, so shall we code this? Shoot code and here. Right, so let me copy this. Okay, let's call this A class. Now we are into the inheritance, okay? New Java class A, B, and B extend from A, extends A. Say A class has some attributes. I will not make it private, okay? The int A, and let's have method void do A, S out do A in A. So let's go to the B class. B extends from A. Okay, so let's have an additional attribute int B. Okay, in B, B is an attribute. Okay, and let's have method do. So void do B. Do B in B. Okay. Right. So now let's create a test class. Say test inheritance. Main method. So let's create a object A1 equal new way. Now I have access to A attribute, do A method. That's it. Dot A. It's integer, right? 10. I can call do A method. But if I create a B object, now I can call B1 dot I have access to A, inheritance, right? I have access to B, its own class, because I have not make it data hidden. මේ access කරන්න දෙන එක වැරදි නමුත් කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා වෙන්න. I can call do A by inheritance and I can call do B because do B is in your own class. You can see. So A class can only do A, but B object can do A and do B both. Maybe do A call कर B1 के B1 के. Okay. Is it clear? Right. So that is inheritance. Now there's something called single inheritance and multiple inheritance. Single inheritance means subclass can inherit from maximum one super class, so one super type. A class can have maximum of one super type, not more than one. But class can have multiple subtypes, that is fine. Then it is single inheritance. Multiple inheritance means a class can have multiple super types. So if a class can have multiple super type, it's multiple inheritance. Like multiple inheritance. For example, as humans, are we single inheritance or multiple inheritance? Of course, our inheritance is slightly different from software development, object-oriented concept. But if you look at biological inheritance, our inheritance is multiple inheritance because you inherit from both your father and mother. Both your father and mother. So because as a biological phenomena, our one is multiple. Okay. But there are some trees, it's single inheritance. Trees. Right? ඇටවලින් හැදෙනවා තියෙන්නේ ඒවා multiple inheritance. පරාගණය වෙනවනේ. Pollination. ඔය දණ්ඩක් පැල කරලා හැදෙනවා තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට නේද? එක කලින් අයියක ගහේ දණ්ඩක් කරන් පැල කරනවා. එතකොට කලින් ගහේ වගේ තමයි මේ ගහන්නේ. Multiple inheritance. Sorry, single inheritance. Single inheritance. එතකොට ඔය තියෙන වාසිය දෙන්න දන්නවා බයෝ කරපුවා නේ. බයෝ කරපුවා. කොහොමද මේ මිනිස් පරිණාමය වෙන්නේ කියලා. හරි හැම සබ්ජෙක්ට් එකක්ම රසවත් හරි. ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑමින් උත් රසවත් මට නම් ඕන සබ්ජෙක්ට් එක රසවත් සබ්ජෙක්ට් 1යි 2යි මම දන්න තරමට මට නම් තියෙන්නේ. ඒ සබ්ජෙක්ට් නම් ඉගෙන ගන්න නෑ මම. මලාට. එක්කෝ ඒ සබ්ජෙක්ට් වල තියෙන්නේ බොරු, මිත්‍යා. එතකොට මට තේරුම් ගන්න නෑ නේ ඉගෙන ගත්ත කියලා. නැත්නම් ඒවා හරි කම්මැලි සබ්ජෙක්ට් දෙක තුනකුත් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක පුද්ගලයා මත ඩිපෙන්ඩ්ස් වෙනවානේ. මම කියන්නේ නැහැ මට කම්මැලි සබ්ජෙක්ට් මොනවද කියලා ඒවට ආස ආයට දුක හිතුනොත් එවනේ. හරි. මට නම් ඔය for me my favorite subject මගේ favorite subject පහ කියන්න ගත්තොත් obviously computer science, mathematics, philosophy, history කියන්නේ මේ මොකද්ද මේ මගුල් history නෙමෙයි යා මේ දුටුගැමුණු රජුරන්ගේ එකයි කුවේණිගේ සිංහබාහුවේ නෙමෙයි history කියන්නේ human evolution and biological evolution, right? So then I like economics, business, politics. ඔය ඕන එකකට මම කැමතියි. ඉගෙන ගන්න කැමතියි හැමදාමත් මම ඉගෙන ගන්න. විශේෂයෙන්ම philosophy. And in general science. සයන්ස් වලත් මම එච්චර ආස නැතිව තියෙනවා විශේෂයෙන්ම ෆිසික්ස් කෙමිස්ට්‍රි වල නම් ආස නැහැ මොකද ඒවා ස්වභාවික දේවල් අපි තේරුම් ගන්න දුක හිතෙන උත්සාහයක් නිසා. හරි. ස්වභාවික දේවල් තේරුම් ගන්නවා කියන්නේ හරිම දුක හිතෙන උත්සාහයක්. හරි. ඒකන්ද මම ඒවා වෙන අයට දීලා ඒවා ගැන මං හිතන්නේ නැතුව ඉන්නේ. හරි. Right. So single inheritance, multiple inheritance. Okay. එතකොට ඒවා ආස නැද්ද හිතන්නේ ඇයි මේ මයි ඔක්ක ගස් ඒ වගේම වෙනවනම් කොහොමද මයි ඔක්ක වෙනස් වෙන්නේ? දැන් දණ්ඩෙන් පැල කරාම ඇයි මිනිස්සු මෙහෙම වෙනස් වෙවි යන්නේ? ඇයි මිනිස්සුගේ බුද්ධිය දියුණු වෙලා අනිත් අයගේ බුද්ධිය දියුණුනේ නැත්තේ? ඒක ලස්සන කතන්දර නේ. ලස්සන කතන්දර නෙවෙයි ලස්සන දේවල් හිතන්න. Food for thoughts. නේද? ඊළඟට ඔක තව ටික ඉස්සරහට ගෙනහිල්ල ඉවරලා ලංකාවේ මිනිස්සු මෙච්චර මෝඩ ලංකාව බංකොලොත් ඇයි? හරි. Interesting things to know about it, right? ඒකට ලස්සන තේරෙන්න පටන් ගන්නවා මේක. මෙන්න මේ දේවල් නම් තමයි මේ දේවල් මේ වෙලාවේ දැන් තියෙන සිටුේෂන් එක උනේ. ඒකනේ ඉතිහාසය ඉගෙන ගන්න කියන්නේ මොකද? හරි. ඉතිහාසය ඉගෙන ගන්න එක තමයි. ඉතිහාසය ඉගෙන ගන්නකොට පැටර්න් පේන්නේ වට ලස්සනට. සබ්ජෙක්ට් වැඩි ඉගෙන ගන්නකොට ඒ සබ්ජෙක්ට් අතර සම්බන්ධය පේන්න පටන් ගන්නවා. ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑමින් ඉගෙන ගත්තම වාසි උදාහරණයක් අපිට Java ඉගෙන ගත්තට පස්සේ අපිට වාසි කතා කරන්න ගියා. ඉංග්‍රීසි සිංහලෙන් කතා කරන්න ගියා. ගණන් ඉගෙන ගත්ත කෙනෙක්ට වාසි ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑමින් කරන්න ගියා. AI ඉගෙන ගත්ත කෙනෙක්ට ලේසි ෆිලොසොෆි වගේ දේවල් ඉගෙන ගන්න. AI ලොජික් ඉගෙන ගන්න. So one help the other. Right. So single inheritance, multiple inheritance. So in C++ language, it support multiple inheritance. C++ is the very first popular big scale object-oriented programming language. It supported multiple inheritance, but almost all the other languages do not support multiple inheritance. C# also support multiple inheritance because it inherited a lot of things from C++, but almost all the other language, including Java, Python, PHP, only support single inheritance. Single inheritance, okay? Multiple inheritance is not supported. So the reason is multiple inheritance create unnecessary complication in class hierarchies, right? It gives bit of a advantage, but the disadvantages are bigger. It create complicated class hierarchies, right? And there's something called double diamond death. පොතේ තවත් ලස්සන කරන්න කියන්නේ deadly double diamond death කියලා. So this is multiple inheritance. So this class has inherited from two classes. Sorry, not this is multiple inheritance. This is multiple inheritance. So this class has inherited from two classes. But at the same time, both these classes are inherited from one class. One class. So this is like a diamond shape inheritance. So this is very confusing and create a lot of ambiguities in your code. Okay. So we want to prevent this kind of situations. How to prevent this kind of situations? Not supporting multiple inheritance. Okay. And you know that even in biological sense, right? So they say you don't need to marry or make children when you are blood relations. One way people think it's unethical, right? Unethical. Secondly, science has found, right? Medical science has found that when you do that, there's a higher chance of your children. It's not going to give any bad thing for you as a couple. But when you get children, your children has a higher chance of getting some diseases. Right? Diseases. When the marriage is marriage, between blood relations. කියන අවස්සනායනගේ අවස්ස මස්සිනා හැම කියරගෙන cousins අතර එහෙම. So biologically also there are issues. In programming also there are issues. Programming also there are issues. Okay. So therefore, all the new programming languages, we don't have multiple inheritance. So then someone will ask, if you want to inherit from more than one class, simply you can't. Simply you can't in languages like Java, Python, PHP. But there's alternative with the help of the concept called interfaces. But actually that is not multiple inheritance. That is polymorphism. So that means modern languages support polymorphism, but not multiple inheritance. And most of the time, multiple inheritance is not required, but we need the single inheritance and polymorphism. Okay, so therefore it's not a big issue. Uh, so that is why all the modern languages support only single inheritance, but it support polymorphism. Okay, so polymorphism we will discuss separately. නැති ඔයාලට හිතන්න තමයි තියෙන්නේ මේවා ගැන ටිකක් කැමති අය හිතන්න කැමති අය. Okay. You can go to YouTube. Okay. You can ask from ChatGPT or whatever the AI agent you like. I prefer the ChatGPT, obviously. Right. So this is a more practical software development example. Right. Remember, I told you better to understand this as supertype, subtype rather than parent and child. Right. For example, parent of super savings account is not saving account. So just think super savings account is its general case is savings account. Its general case is account. Rather super type. Super type of super savings account is savings account. Super type of savings account is account. Subtype of account is savings account and current account. Subtype of saving account is a super savings account. So that is the better terminology. So therefore, don't use child, parent, inheritance. Just remember there's a bit of a connection, but don't use that terminology. Always try to use super type, subtype, specialization, generalization, and so on. Okay. And when you go to higher semesters, semester 3, 4, 5, there are object-oriented related concepts. So there we more and more use super type, subtype, and very rarely we use the word parent, children, inheritance, and so on. Okay. Right. I already explained what does subclass inherit, non-private attributes and behaviors. Okay. So what can subclass do? Say B is a subclass of A, B extend from A. What can B do? Obvious now B has inherited non-private attributes and behaviors of A. Attributes and behaviors means non-private instance variables, class variables, non-private instance method, class methods. So inherit වෙච්ච එකක් හරියන්නේ නැහැ නේද? ඔයත් මොන හරි කරන්න බෑ B. So B can override inherited behaviors. Override කරන්න පුළුවන්. And not only that, B can add its own attributes, B can add its own behaviors. අපි B class එක දැම්මේ do B කියලා method එකක් B කියලා attribute එක. So that is new attribute and new behaviors. Okay. And also you can override inherited behaviors. Right? අපි override කරන එක තමයි කරේ නැත්තේ. Override කරන එක තමයි කරේ නැත්තේ. අපි ඒක කරමු එහෙනම්. Remember we have class A, class B, B extend from A. Right? So remember we had do A method. Do A method. Now B objects can also call do A method. Right? So let's have two methods. Do A 1, do A 2. Do A 1, do A 2. Right. So now here I need to change it to do A1. Right. Do A1. And now A1 can call do A2 also, right? Because I have two methods there. Do A2. And not only A1 can call do A1 and A2, B1 also can call do A1, do A2 because both are not private, non-private. Both are non-private. Now, this is inherited behavior, this is inherited behavior, right? You can see do A2 in A. B object එකුණාට A के behavior තමයි called in. Now, what is the other thing you can do in subclass? If you want, you can override a method. Say, I am not happy with this do A2 method inherited from the super type, right? So if you want, you can override it. Override. So this is overriding. How to override? You write the method with same signature, but you implement differently. You implement differently. So you remember do A2 is in A class, but now do A2 is in B class also. Now I will say do A2 in B. Yes, it's do A2, but this is the version you redefine in your B class. Now when you call this, you are calling the A class do A2. But when you call this, you are not calling the A class do A2, rather you are calling the B class do A2 because you are a B object. Right? So since you are a B object, for you it is the overridden method. Now do A2 is in both A and B, but you are a B object, you have overridden do A2 behavior. So therefore you will be calling the B class do A2. So therefore this will be do A2 in A, right? But this will be do A2 in B now because this is a B object, this is a object. Now when I rerun, you will find that this is do A2 in A and this is do A2 in B. Okay, right? Let's run it because I have overridden. Right. So here do A2 in A because it's A object that is calling this. But when you call this, sorry, that is calling this. But when you call in this, you get do A2 in B. That is the inherited version. So if the same method is in the class hierarchy, it will check from below class and go upwards. If the same method is in the below class or your current class, it will be called. It won't call the original super types method. So that is called overriding a method. So that is okay, right? Say you inherit methods from your mother, right? Mother. So mother can also sing, you can also sing, therefore. Assume. Right? So therefore, අම්මට සින්දුවක් කියන්න කිව්වම ගිහිලා සින්දුවක් කියනවා නම් දුවත් ගිහිලා සින්දුවක් කියනවා. ඇයි අම්මට පුළුවන් නම් මටත් පුළුවන්. අපි හිතුව මෙන් පුළුවන් ආරට ආවා කියලා. But if you want to, you can override it. හරි. අම්ම කියන විදිහට නේ මම සින්දු කියන්නේ. අම්මට සින්දුවක් කිව්වම කියලා අම්ම ශාස්ත්‍රීය සින්දුවක් කියනවා. මට සින්දුවක් කියන්න කිව්වම මම බයිලයක් ගහලා. මොකද මම සින්දු කියන්නේ මට ඕන විදිහට. මට සින්දු කියන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මම අම්මගේ ආරයට නෙමෙයි සින්දු කියන්නේ. මම කියන්නේ වෙන විදියට. හැබැයි මට සින්දු කියන්න පුළුවන් උනේ අම්මට පුළුවන් අන්න. හැබැයි මම සින්දු කියන්නේ වෙන විදියට. So that is overriding. right? ඊට අමතරව ඔයාලට ඕන නම් අලුත් දේවල් කරන්න පුළුවන්. අම්මට සින්දු කියන්න පුළුවන් නටන්න බෑ. මට සින්දු කියන්න පුළුවන් නටන්න පුළුවන්. right? So B class has sing and dance, whereas A class only had sing. Or maybe you have already over in the sing also. Maybe you just use the inherited something, but over in the sing and new method called dance. Okay. So that is okay, right? Right. So that is called overriding. When you override a method for the subtypes objects, the overridden version is called, not the supertype method. But for the supertype object, still the supertype of behavior is called. Because supertype can't see the subtypes behaviors. Okay. Is it clear? And so that is called overriding. So when you override, make sure your class has the exact method signature. Exact method signature. Same name, same parameters, number of parameters and data types, same return types. Otherwise, it's not overriding. Right? So this is overriding. You can see Y method has been overridden. For B objects, this version is called, for A object, right? For A objects, this version is called, for B object, this version is called. Same Y method. Because B class has overridden the Y method. So this is a B object. Yes, B extend for me, but you have overridden. But for X method, still this is getting called. Because X is not overridden. තේරුම් ගත්තම හරි ලේසියි. Okay. Right. Any questions? Any questions? So then there's another interesting feature. How the constructors are called. Remember we have something called constructors. This is my A class. හැම එකම AB class එක කරලා ඉවර කරමු. අපිට 10 පාරක්. Right. So remember I have not written constructor for A because I rely on the default constructor. Let's create a constructor. You know what is a constructor, right? Constructor is like a method. Its name must be case sensitive class name and it must not return anything, not even void. Vachara, hari. Let's say A object is created. Right? A created. So let's have constructor for B class. So then it must be B. Say B object created. Because this is a subclass, it's not fair to say B object created, right? Anyway, let's call it B object created, but this is not the very correct terminology, okay? Right. Now use your common sense, right? Common sense and tell me when I have this line, what will be the only this line, nothing else, okay? Nothing else. Let me right, nothing else. So what will be the output? Anyone? This is my A class, A constructor, and some attribute behaviors. I'm not calling any behaviors anyway, just create the object. And this is B class. Right? It says B object created. And I have methods overriding, but I'm not calling anything. I'm just creating the object. That's it. All the other code is commented. What is the output when I call, when this line is executed? Anyone? So it must be or A object created because obviously we create A object, right? Let's run it and see. Yes, A object created. මේක ඔයා කරලා බලන්න ඕන. Because when A object is created, A constructor is called. That's fair, right? Right. So that line is from this. Okay, now I will comment this. Right. I will comment this. ඔයාට comment කරන්න ඕන නැතිනේ control slash. හරි? toggle එක. පස්සේ uncomment කරන්න පුළුවන් ආයි control slash කරලා. But now I want to create a B object. Now what is the output? ඔයාට හිතෙන දේ කියන්න. හිතෙන දේ. Remember, this is my B object constructor. B object is created. This is my A object constructor. A object is created. Now you need to think about whether it's going to call the B constructor, whether it's going to call A constructor. Is it going to call both the constructors? If so, in what sequence? Right? because we are creating a B object. Now, understanding this is super important to understand polymorphism. Understand polymorphism, right? Polymorphism ගැන කවි ලියන්නේ එලකිරි වගේ use කරලා software develop කරන්න. මං කියන්නේ IT degree ගන්න අයගෙන් 140ක් විතර ජීවිතේට ඉන්ටර්විව් එකකටවත් යන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. ලංකාවේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා Tamanට බෑ කියලා. යථාර්ථය ඉස්සරහා පිළිගන්න. එතකන් ඉන්නව බොරු සෝදාගෙන. ඉන්ටර්විව් එකක් කියන්නේ යථාර්ථයක්. ජොබ් එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා කියන්නේ යථාර්ථයක්. දැන් ඉතින් ජොබ් එක කියලා වැඩ කරන්න බෑ. Right. So this is how it happens. When B object is created, right? When B object is created, first it create A object. ඇත්තටම කරන්නේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා A object එකක් හදනවා. Right? A object is created. So therefore A constructor is first called. But remember, we are creating a B object. I told you B is a special case of A. Right? මම කොහොම තාත්තලා පුතාලා කියලා හිතන්න එපා. අම්මලා පුතාලා කියලා හිතන්න එපා. එහෙම හිතුවොත් වරදිනවා. Right? So B is a special case of A. If B is a special case of A, first A nature must be created. Says super savings account is a savings account. So then when you create a super savings account, first you need to have that savings account nature. So then the super savings account nature. So therefore, A object is created or A nature is created. First, you are creating B object, yes. First A nature is created. That means A constructor is called. So then it called the B constructor to add B features because ultimately it is a B object. But B object has A features and B features. So A features can be initialized in A constructor. Therefore, this happened first. And then this happens. B constructor is also called because if you want to initialize any B nature, but B nature can be initialized on top of A nature. So therefore, output will be A object is created, B object is created. හැබැයි ඇත්ත කතන්දරේ object දෙයක් හැදෙන්නේ නැත. A object is created or A nature is added, B nature is added. ඒකද හරි වෙන්න ඕන. හරි කතන්දරේ වෙන්න ඕන. ඒක මම කියර වචන එච්චර හොඳ නැහැ කියලා. දැන්ට අපිට output එකේ A object created, B object created කියලා. හැබැයි දෙක object එක හැදෙන්නේ ආ. Right. So that is misleading. ඔයාට ඉතින් පුළුවන් ද object එකක් හදුන කියලා object එකක් හදුන්නේ නැහැ. මම මේ ලියපු වචන වැරද්දලා මම ලියුවේ. මේ කියමු A nature. Right. A nature. A ලක්ෂණ ටික create වුණා. A nature ටික උනාට පස්සේ තමයි B nature එක එන්නේ. ඒ උඩ ඒක හරියට ඔයාගේ අම්මගේ ලක්ෂණ ටික ඔයාට ආවා. හරි. දැන් ඔයාට ස්පෙસિෆික් ලක්ෂණ තියෙනවා නම් ඔන්න ඒ ටික දැන් ඔයාගේ ඇඟට එනවා. හරි. ඔයාගේ ඇඟට එනවා. අම්මගේ ලක්ෂණ ටික උඩ තමයි ඔයාගේ ලක්ෂණ ටික එන්නේ දැන්. ඒ කියන්නේ ඉස්ලේ අම්මයි කන්ස්ට්‍රක්ට් එක කෝල් උනේ. Let's run it. So therefore it will be A nature is created and B nature is created. Okay. For A, okay. So that is how, therefore, when you create a B object, first A constructor is called. If it has another super type, first that constructor is called. Likewise, it goes from top to bottom. Right? That you need to understand. Okay. That you need to understand. Object එකක් හැදෙන්නේ නැහැ හරි. B class B object එකක් හදනකොට එක object එකයි ඒක ඇතුලේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා A nature එක හැදෙනවා ඊට පස්සේ B nature එක හැදෙනවා. Right. So that is how constructors are called from top to bottom. So when you create a dog object, basically first the animal nature is added, then the dog nature is added on top of animal nature because dog is animal. Animal constructor is called, then the dog constructor is called. Okay. So you can see first A constructor is called, then B constructor is called. But for A objects, only A constructor is called. Okay. Right. So now we move on to our next concept, abstract classes and abstract methods. Now, where you are saying. So what is mean by abstract class? Remember we discussed about abstraction as a concept, right? Abstraction as a concept. Abstraction means we model essential, minimal, minimal, essential, right? Minimal, essential. So that is a object-oriented concept, design concept, best practice, right? Don't include all the bullshit in your class, just include the minimum essential. Actually, that is not only object-oriented concept, it's good for your life. Good for your life. Don't do all the bullshit in the world. Do the minimum essential things in your world, your life. පට්ටනේ එතකොට මම නම් එහෙමයි. හරි. අනිත් අය කරන වැඩ එකක්වත් මම නම් කරන්නේ නැහැ. අනිත් ඒවා නටුවට මම නටන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. අනිත් ඒවා උඩ පැනලා කියලා මම උඩ පයින්නේ නැහැ. හරි. අනිත් ඒවා උඩ පැන ගන්න කියලා මම මගේ වැඩක් කරගෙන ඉන්නවා. මම බලනවා මට ඒක අත්‍යවශ්‍යද? අවශ්‍යද? අත්‍යවශ්‍යද? අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නම් කරනවා නැත්නම් උඹලා කරගෙන ඉන්න මම කරන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. එච්චරයි. පොඩි කාලේ ඉඳන් මම නම් එහෙම. හැමතිස්සෙම පුරුදු වෙනවා නෑ කියන්න බෑ කියන්න. සමහර බයයි. බය මිනිස්සු හරි බයයි නෑ කියන්න බෑ කියන්න. බෑ කියන්නේ ඇයි? මේක පළක් නැති දෙයක්. මට පළක් නැහැ. ඕගොල්ලන්ට පළක් තියෙනවා නම් කරගන්න. මට මේක කිසි පළක් නැහැ. ඉතින් ඕගොල්ලෝ කරා කියලා මම කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඕගොල්ලෝ කම්ප්ලෙක්ස් විදිහට කරනවා මම සරල විදිහට කරගන්නවා. Right? So that is the discipline coming from engineering as well, right? හැබැයි engineering කරන කලින් ඉඳලා අපි අපේ ඔළුවේ ඔක තිබුණා. ඒකනේ අපි engineering කරන්න ඕනේ. හරි. නැත්නම් අපි යනවනේ වෙන මොකක් හරි පැත්තට නේද? නැත්නම් අපි lawyer කෙනෙක් වෙන්න තිබුණා. ડોක්ටර් කෙනෙක් වෙන්න තිබුණා. අපේ ඔළුවේ තිබුණේ නැහැ එහෙම දෙයක්. ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතන විදිය වෙනස්. අන්න ડોක්ටර්ස්ලා හිතන්නත් ඕනේ එහෙම තමයි. හරි ඒක වෙනම කතාවක්. ලෝයස්ලා අත කරමු ලෝයස්ලා කියන්නේ වෙනම සත්තු జాතියන්නේ. Right. Then what is abstract class? Abstract class means class which you cannot create objects. It's a class, but you cannot create object out of that. We restrict. When you restrict, how to restrict? You use the abstract keyword in the class. So then you can't create object from that class. Okay. So why do you want to mark class as abstract? Because that concept is too abstract. There's no, in reality, that concept is, the concept doesn't have objects, right? You just create that class for inheritance, polymorphism, as generalizing, but that kind of generalization is not found in reality. So therefore, you should not allow creating object of that class. So then you mark it as abstract class. So you create that class for inheritance, that is fine, but you must not allow object creation. Mark it as abstract. For example, if you go to bank, there are different type of accounts. Savings accounts are there, current accounts are there, super savings accounts are there, and the Vanita Vasana කියයි, ටිකරි ළමා ගෙනුම කියයි. Those are special gains class of savings account. Of course, you can go and say, I want to open savings account. Of course, they will give you the form to fill, or then a form will come, then ස්මාර්ට්ෆෝන් එකක් හරි මොකක් හරි තියෙනවා ඔන්ලයින් ලොග් වෙලා ෆෝම් එක ෆිල් කරලා සබ්මිට් කරන්න කියනවා. දැන් කියන්නේ එහෙම නේද? මම දන්නවා අපි නම් බැංකුවට ගියොත් එම් ෆෝම් එක ෆිල් කරලා නැත්නම් යාගේ තියෙන ටැබ් එක අතර දෙනවා ෆිල් කරන්න කියලා. හරි? Anyway, so that is fine, right? Create a savings account. ගෑනු ළමෙක් නම් වාට කියයි හරි පට වනිතා වාසනා එකක් හරි හරි. හරි පොඩි ළමෙක් නම් වාට ටිකිරි ගිණුමක් හරි හරි ටිකිරි ගිණුමක් පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් business වැඩ කරනවා නම් current account එක yes you can check their name පුළුවන්. But can you go and say, I want to open an account? කියලා පාට බැංකුවට කියලා. I want to open an account here. They will say, no, you can't open an account. You can open a saving account. You can open a current account. You can open a degree account. Say super savings, but you can't open an account. So then you will say bank account තියෙන. එතකොට අනිත් මිනිස්සුගේ account තියෙනවනේ. මට මොකද account එකක් අද open කරන්න දෙන්නේ නැත්තේ? ඔයගොල්ලෝ මාරු කරවන්නේ එහෙම කරලා. තේන්නේ නැහැ කාගවත් account නැහැ අපි ගාව. අපි ගාව තියෙන savings account, current account because account is abstract concept. Account is abstract concept. Actually, no one is having accounts in banks. Whatever we are having is savings account, current accounts, and so on. So therefore, when you create class hierarchy also, you must make it abstract so that in the system, even by mistakes, account objects cannot be created. Right? Simple as that. Why? Because in reality, there's nothing called accounts. It's against the domain principles, business principles. Okay. Simple as that. So then you mark it as abstract. So just use the word abstract in your class. So then when you try to create a class object, you will get error. කළා බලන්න. මේ abstract කියන keyword එක අයින් කරන එකම ඔයාලට මෙහෙම object එකක් දෙන්නේ. Error. So then why do we have abstract classes? Because though you can't create object, you can extend from that class. And then these classes can be non-abstract. So abstract classes are for inheritance and polymorphism, not for object creation. එම සැරින් සැරේ polymorphism කියනවා හරි මොකද polymorphism තමයි අපි ඊළඟ topic එක හරි but you can see we can inherit this method right so we objects inherit x method from abstract class A so therefore yes but you can't create object you will get error why because maybe that is not good that is against our policies against the law that is why we mark it as abstract is it clear do you have any questions do you want to challenge anything don't worry right challenge කරන්න ඕන ගුරුවරුන්ව අපි නම් ඉස්කෝලේ ගුරුවරුන්ව පට්ට විදියට challenge කරලා තියෙනවා හරි ඒක අපි ආතලු තරම් තියෙනවා දැන් එහෙම කරන්නේ කියන්නේ නැහැ ඕගොල්ලන්ට හරි කොල්ල කාරේනේ දෙන්නේ නේද එහෙම ආතලු තරම් තියෙනවා සමහර ගුරුවරු සමහර පන්ති වලට එන්නේ නැහැ හොඳේ කොල්ලොන්ට බයයි විශේෂයෙන් කොල්ලොන්ට බය යන්න එන්නේ නැහැ සමහර ගුරුවරු ගුරු කාමරේ අඬනවා අනේ අර පන්තියට යන්න එපයි දැන් ඉතින් උන් මහා අමුතු ප්‍රශ්න අහන්නේ අමුතු ප්‍රශ්න කියන්නේ කුණුවarp නෙමෙයි හරි විෂය කරුණු අහන්නේ විශේෂයෙන් A level පන්ති වලට එහෙම ගියාම කොල්ලෝ ඉන්නවා ගුරුවරුන්ට වඩා ස්මාර්ට් කොල්ලෝ කෙල්ලෝ ඉන්න ගුරුවරයාට වැඩිය ස්මාර්ට් ඒතකොට ගුරුවරු පට්ට බයයි මොකද බොරු ගන්නන්න බෑනේ ඒතකොට අරගොල්ලෝ චැලෙන්ජ් කරනවා එහෙම කොහොමද වෙන්නේ මේ කන්ට්‍රඩික්ටිං නේ right so that is called abstract class okay මම කියන්නේ මේ හිංසනය කරන්න එපා ගුරුවරු මොඳේ හරි ගුරුවරු දැනගන්න ඕන තමන් නොදන්න මගුල් නොකර ඉන්න හරි නොදන්න මගුල් කරන්නේ නැතුව තමන්ට පුළුවන් රැකියාවක් කරන්න දැන් මේ දවස්වල දැන් එන වලින් නේද මම අදත් උද්ඝෝෂණයක් තියෙනවා අධ්‍යාපන දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව ගාව කාර්ය සහායකයෝ කිව්වා අපිට ගුරුපත් වීම දෙන්න කියලා. අධිකරණය කිව්වා නෑ එහෙම දෙන්න බෑ. ඕගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නේ වෙන සේවයක. ඊට පස්සේ අර තව කොහෙද ඉන්නව නේද මොකද්ද? මොනවද ඒවට කියන්නේ? මම නෑ ඒවට යන්න හරි අකමැති තැනක්. ගියොත් එහෙම බෝම්බිකුත් තරම් තමයි යන්නේ මම. හරි. මල පයින්නවනේ ගියාම මේ මොනවද තියෙන ප්‍රාදේශීය ලේකම් කාර්යාලවල හිටියක සෙට් එකකුත් කියලා අපිවත් ගුරුපත් වීම දෙන්න කියලා නේද? ඒකත් අයින් එපා කියලා තියෙනවා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ එන්න ඕන නම් හරි විදියට විභාග වලට පෙනී ඉඳලා එන්න. ඕගොල්ලෝ එහෙම උපාධි තීච්ච පරිදි ගන්න නැහැ. හරි? අධික නඩු තීන්දුවම දුන්නේ ඊයේ පෙරේද? එහෙම අය තමයි අර ගුරු ඊට ස්ටුඩන්ට්ලට බය මොකද තමයි මේ ගුරු වෘත්තියට එන්න පුළුවන්කම නෙමෙයිනේ අර නිකන් පැය හතරක් වැඩ කරලා ගෙදර යන්න. සාරි අඳින්න, තත්ත්වයක් ගන්න, කසාදයක් කරගන්න සමහර නේද? වැඩේ කරන්න ඕන හරියට කරන්න. Right. So abstract classes are for inheritance and polymorphism, not for object creation. Okay. Right. So the next concept is abstract method. Abstract method. So abstract method is a method having no body. just the method signature, right? Something like this. You can see this method has no method body, no functionality, implementation, just the method signature. So then you need to mark it as abstract and no implementation. And if you have at least one abstract method, you must mark your class also as abstract. Your abstract class can have non-abstract method, right? And also your abstract class may not have any abstract method. But if you have at least one abstract method, it's a must to mark your class as abstract class. It's a rule. So then you must ask why, if you are a critical thinker. But කිව්ව ගමන් ඇයි කියලා අහනවා නේද? කිව්ව ගමන් අහන්නේ ඇයි කියලා. Now I gave you a rule, right? If you have at least one abstract method, you must mark your class as abstract. So ඔයා අහන්න ඕනේ ඇයි? ඇයි එහෙම එකක් කරන්නේ? ඇයි එහෙම abstract කියලා mark නොකර ඉන්න බැරි? ඔයගොල්ලෝ මගෙන් ඇහුවේ නෑනේ මම අද ඒවට උත්තර දෙන්න යන්නේ නෑ. අහන්න නැති ප්‍රශ්න වලට උත්තර දෙන්නට පිස්සු නෑ. අපි ඔයගොල්ලෝ හොයාගන්න මොකද ඔයගොල්ලන් කවුරු ආවොත් ඒක? ඔයගොල්ලන් කවුරු ආවොත් ඒක ඔයා වගේ කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ වැඩවලට. මගෙන් ඇහුවත් මම උත්තර දෙනවා මම ඇහුවේ නෑනේ කොහොමද? So therefore if you have at least one abstract method, you must mark your class as abstract. But your abstract class can have no abstract method or mixture of things. So then you must ask why do you need abstract method? ඒකට ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අහන්න ඕන හරි. When මම දිගෑරේ ගම abstract method කියලා ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අහනවද? Why do we need abstract methods? මේක බොඩි එකකුත් නැහැ, implementation එකකුත් නැහැ, signature එකක් කියලා ලියන්නේ මොන මගුලකටද? So again the answer is abstract methods are there for polymorphism. දැන් මම නිකන් කෝකටත් අයිඩියා කියනවාද polymorphism. ඒතර ඔයගොල්ලෝ මුත් අහන්නේ නැහැ නේද? Why do we have abstract classes? Polymorphism. And maybe bit of inheritance. Abstract method 100% for polymorphism. Right? Polymorphism. දැන් මගෙන් අහන්න එපා ඇයි explain කරන්න කියලා ඒක explain කරනවා polymorphism කරද්දී. ඔය තාම polymorphism කරේ නැහැ. polymorphism කරාට පස්සෙත් මේක තේරෙන්නේ නැත්නම් මගෙන් අහන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. නැතවද අද හොයන්න පුළුවන් මොකද්ද polymorphism කියන්නේ කියලා. මොකද අපි polymorphism අද කරන්නේ නැති හන්ද. මට සතියක් තියෙනවා එයා ගැන හිතන්න. කල්පනා කරන්න. ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා නම් ප්‍රශ්න ඔයාලට පුළුවන් ලබන ක්ලාස් එක පටන් ගන්න කලින් ප්‍රශ්නාවලියක් හදාගෙන ඉන්න. මට ගිය සතියේ ක්ලාස් එකේ මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්න ටික තියෙනවා. right. එහෙමයි වැඩක් ඉගෙන ගන්න. ප්‍රශ්න එකක් නෙමෙයි මට ප්‍රශ්න 50ක් විතර තියෙනවා. එකම උටපටයක්. එහෙමයි ඉගෙන ගන්න. Right. So therefore abstract methods are methods having no body. If you have abstract method, you must mark your class also as abstract. Okay. Right. So let's do a small example. Dry කියන එකට මම හැමතිස්සෙම කියන උත්තරේ මොකද්ද? Polymorphism. ඒක අන්ති ඉවසන්න වෙනවා දැන්. Okay. So let's say I have a class. Say I mark, now remember I managed to create B objects, right? B objects. No issue. I can run this. Okay. I can run this. I can create A object, I can create B object. But if I mark this class abstract, say public abstract, right? No issue in this class, right? Abstract class කියලා ලිව්වා. හැබැයි මේක abstract විතර නෙමෙයි ඕනේ. හැබැයි දැන් මෙන්න මෙතන red, right? You can't create A objects. Why? A is abstract class, right? A is abstract, cannot be instantiated, right? Abstract class is not for create object, so therefore you get an error. ඔක run compile වෙන්නේ නැහැ, run වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Compiler එකක් දෙනවා නවත්තන run කරන්නේ නැහැ, right? Cannot be instantiated, right? Because it's abstract. Okay. Again, if it is not abstract, yes, you can run. Compile, run, no issue. What is the other rule? You can have abstract methods, right? So now I have a few methods which are not abstract, right? So let's say I have a method called doC, void do, say do A3. But if it has a method body, that is fine. Make a mugut datat command. No issue, right? No compile errors running. But if my method is abstract, එහෙනම් මම දැන් method signature එක විතරක් ලියන්න නවත්තනවා. මගේ do it 3. මම B ට ලියුවේ. මම B ට ලියන්න A ට ලියන්නම් ආ. ඒකට වැඩි හොඳයි. right. A ට ලියනවා. Right. So let's call it do A3. Now this is fine because this is not abstract method. I can run this. කලින් වැරද්දට මම B ට ලියුවා. Right. No issue. But what happens if I make it abstract? No method body, just a semicolon. Then make abstract කියලා ලියන්න ඕන. නැත්නම් මොකද body එක ගන්නෑ. Abstract. Right? Abstract. Now I get an error. Why? බලන්න මොකද error එක කියලා. Make a abstract. එයා කියනවා ඔයාගේ abstract method එක ගන්න දිනවා ඒ class එකට abstract කරන්න. නැකද make a abstract. Error. Now I can't compile. Or I can't compile. Right, you can see. Not abstract. A is not abstract, doesn't override abstract method. A abstract නැති අන්ත ඔයාට මුකුත් වෙන නිහඬ කරන්න දෙන්නේ. Why? If you have abstract method, you must mark your class as abstract. It's a rule. Right? මොන්න දැන් A එක නෑ. දැන් වෙන තැනක එකක් තියෙනවා. මොකද්ද? Because A is abstract class, now you can't create a object. That is a different story, right? It's a different story. Right? So therefore, if you have abstract method, you must make your class abstract. Therefore, I will comment this. Otherwise, now I need to delete some methods. Okay. And I need to at least delete this. Now I'm back. Okay. Right. Now I can make it normal class because I commented the abstract method, because otherwise I need to make this abstract and then I can't create object and so many put a button. Okay. Right. So that is called abstract classes, abstract methods. You will better understand the why when we do in polymorphism. Polymorphism තමයි අර නිකන් අර උත්සවයේ මොකද්ද පිනකල් එක කියන්නේ නේද? මොකද්ද ඒකට කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන්? කූට ප්‍රාප්තිය කියන්නේ කූට ප්‍රාප්තිය තමයි polymorphism. හරි? right. කූට ප්‍රාප්තිය මම දන්නේ හරි මට ඉතින්. Right. So now our final concept is final class and final methods. Okay, final class, final method. So what is mean by final class? You can mark a class as final with final keyword. If you mark it like that, that class cannot be subclass. That class cannot be subclass. Simple as that. So that means that class can be we can create object but no inheritance. ඒක හරියට නිකන් අර අපි කියන මහාන වුණා වගේ. මහාන වුණා වගේ. මහාන වුණාම ළමයි හදන්න බෑනේ නේද? හරිනම් මේ මාගේ අවසානයයි මේ මෙතනින් යනම සසර දික් කරගන්න නැහැ කියලා නේද? ඉන්හෙරිටන්ස් වලට සහභාගී වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා මහාන වෙනවා. ෆයිනල් ක්ලාස් එක. මම ඉන්නවා. මම ඉන්න හැබැයි ඉන්හෙරිටන්ස් වලට සහභාගී වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ළමයි හදන්නේ නැහැ. හරිද? බටේ රටවල වල නම් මහාන වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ළමයි හදන්නේ නැහැ කියලා ඒගොල්ලෝ තීරණය කරනවා සමහරවල්. It's a final class. දැන් ලංකාවේ වගේ රටක නම් ඒක එන ප්‍රශ්නයක්. හරි? ළමයි හදන්නේ නැත්නම් මොකටද පරම්පරාව ගෙනියන්නේ කොහොමද? නේද? එහෙම නේද ලංකාවේ මිනිස්සු හිතන්නේ. පරම්පරාව ගෙනියන්නේ කොහොමද? හරි? මැරෙන්න ගියාම වතුරු ගුරක් බොන්නේ කොහොමද? ඒක ඕන තරම් බටේ රටවල ළමයි හදන්න තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ අය නිතර මේ රටවල වලට ගන්නෙ. ලංකාවේ කොච්චර ගිහිලා දෙනවද? බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය කියන්නේ අපිට වඩා චුට්ටයි ලොකු නේද? හැබැයි ඒ රටේ මිනිස්සු ළමයි හදන්නේ නැහැ ඇඩිය. ඔන්න ෆයිනල් ක්ලාස්. right final class. They can subclass කරන්න බෑ. Let's do it. Say this class is not a final class. So therefore I can extend. But if I mark it as public final class, now this is not allowed. You can see error. Cannot be inherited from finally. ඒකෙන් inherit වෙන්න බෑ. මොකද ඒ කියනවා මාව inherit කරන්න එපා. මාව inherit කරන්න එපා. මාව inherit කරන්න මම කැමති නැහැ. So that is called final class. So final class you can create object because these are not abstract. But final class you can't subclass. Okay? Right. දැන් ඕගොල්ලෝ අහනවනේ ඇයි? ඇයි ඉන්නේටන්ස් වලට සහභාගී වෙන්න කැමති නෑ. ඒතකොට කියන්නේ බා ළමයා දන්නේ නැහැ වගේ. හරි ඉන්නේටන්ස් very very rarely class is marked as final. Very very rarely. Because when you mark a class as final class, you can't support inheritance, which is pretty bad. So that is why I told you very rarely class is marked final. මගේ software development ජීවිතේට එක දවසක්වත් මම class එක final කියලා mark කරලා නැත. එහෙම හේතුවක් වෙලා නැහැ. right? එහෙම කරන්නේ අර ගොඩක් අයට polymorphism වලදී undesirable defects, security issues වගේ කියලා බය හිතුනොත් තමයි sub class කරන්නේ. In Java, JDK, there's a famous class which is final class. That is string class. මට මතක විදිහට string. Right? If you go to string class, the string class එක final class. That means you can't override string class. ඔයාට බෑ string class එක override කරන්න. Because it's a final class. ගොඩක් අය final class in JDK ඇතුලේ. ඒකට ඒවා sub class කරන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ. වෙන වෙන දේවල් collapse වෙනවා. So it's more for their benefit rather than for our software development. Okay. So therefore, anyway, that is called final class. Okay. You need to understand these things. It's a very interesting thing. Or ජීවිතේ තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන්. හරි software development කරනකොට. හරි. සමාජයේ ජීවිතේ සමාජය ගැන අවබෝධයක් තියෙනකොට programming කරන්න ලේසි. Programming ගැන අවබෝධයක් තියෙනකොට සමාජය තේරුම් ගන්න ලේසි. Right. So that is final class. That means class which should not be subclass. because subclass කරලා override කරලා game ගහන්න පුළුවන්. security වගේ පැති වලින් නැත්නම් වෙන වෙන ප්‍රශ්න ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. ඒක ගොඩක් අය දෙන frameworks වලට. අපි කරන්නේ ගොඩක් අය framework use කරන එකනේ. framework හදන පාය තමයි ඒව ගැන කල්පනා කරන්න. JDK කියන්නේ එක්තරා විදිහක framework එකක්. Right. So the next concept is final method. Right. For example, remember I override do a2. Do a2. But if I mark this as final, final method means you are not supposed to override. You are not supposed to override. Now, if you go to the B class, this is error. Earlier, we managed to override, but now it says you can't override. Why? Because in A class, I have marked it as final. I mark it as final. So that is called final method. Again, someone will ask, why do you want to mark method as final? Method as final करा के class से final करना होने. You can have non-final class. Remember, in abstract classes, if you have abstract method, your class must be abstract. But there's nothing like that for final methods. You can have final method, but your class is not final. So then someone will ask, why do you want to mark a method as final? දැන් මම හැමතිස්සෙම polymorphism කියන්නේ නැහැ. හරි මම දැන් polymorphism කිව්වේ නැහනේ. මේකට. So this is not polymorphism. Right? So final class හදනවා කිව්වේ මම කරන්නේ polymorphism හදන්නේ මේ නේද? For security reasons, better control. So final methods are also not because of the polymorphism. Final methods are again for better control, security, and so on. If I give you a practical example, non-IT, non-programming example. So remember, I gave you example previously. Mother has sing method. So you can override sing method, right? If you want, you inherit and override. අම්මා කිව්වේ ශාස්ත්‍රීය සින්දු. ඔයා කියන්නේ දැන් බයිලා. ඒතර අම්මගෙන් ඉන්හෙරිට් වුණාම මොකෝ? ඒතර ලස්සන කටහඬ එහෙම තියෙනවා. නමුත් ඔයා කියන්නේ අම්මා කිව්වපු සින්දු නෙමෙයි. හරි. ඊට අමතරව ඩාන්ස් සින්දු ලියලා දැන් නටනට සින්දු කියන. ඔය ඕන අම්මට කියන්න පුළුවන්. ඔබ සින්දු කියනවා නම් මං කියපු විදිහට කියපන් නැත්නම් නොකිය හිටපන්. නේද? ඔය ඉන්නේ මොහිදින් බේකේ පුතායිම නේද? තාත්තා වගේම සින්දු කියන්නේ. හරි. වීලෝඩක් වෙන සින්දුවක් කියන්නේ නැහැ. හරි. වෙන සින්දුවක් කිව්වා තාත්තගේ විදිහට කියන්නේ. අන්න final methods. හරි තාත්තා කියන්නේ නැති ඔබ සින්දු කිව්වට කමක් නැහැ මං කියපු විදිහට කියපන් නැත්නම් නොකී හිටපන් කියලා. ඌත් කියන්නේ මේ විදිහට තමයි තාත්තගේ විදිහට විතරයි කියන්නේ වෙන විදිහට සින්දු කියන්නේ නැහැ. වෙන සින්දුවක් ගත්තත් ඒ තාත්තගේ ස්ටයිල් එකට තමයි කියන්නේ. So that is a final method. Final method means you are not supposed to override. You can sing. You can sing, but you can't override the sing method, sing behavior. You must sing the way I sing, your parents sing, right? Maybe due to some reason, right? Due to some reason. Of course, in programming, it may be security reason, better control, and so on. Very rarely we mark a method final. In my software development lifetime, I have never ever marked a method as final. But there are such final methods used in frameworks, JDK, for their better control and so on. Okay. Right. Final class, final method. Okay. So final class cannot be subclass. Final method cannot be overridden. Okay. Overridden. And there's interesting combination now. Remember, we discussed two concepts, abstract class, final class. Abstract class cannot be instantiated, but can be inherited, and polymorphism can be used. Final classes cannot be subclass, but you can create objects. What is the purpose of a class? There are two usages of class. Class එකක තියෙන වැඩ දෙකයි තියෙන්නේ. හරි? Class එකකට වැඩ දෙකයි කරන්න පුළුවන්. මොකක්ද? You can create objects of that. You can use that class for inheritance. Right? You can use a class to create objects. You can use class for inheritance. Subclass that class and create new classes. Then what happens if you have a class which is both abstract and final? So there's a class which I have marked it as final, abstract, say class 6. මෙහෙම class එකක් හදුවොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඕගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නේ. What happens to this? Because it's a final class, you can't subclass. ඒ කියන්නේ මෙයාගේ subclass කරලා වෙන classes ලියන්න බෑ. Because it's abstract class, you can't create object. So that means it's useless class. මුගෙන් object හදා ගන්නවත් බෑ, මුගෙන් inheritance කර ගන්නවත් බෑ. ඒක හරියට මීහරකෙක් ඉන්නවා. මීහරකගෙන් වැඩක් ගන්නවත් බෑ. මීහරකගෙන් පැටව ගන්නවත් බෑ. හරි පැටව ගන්නවත් බෑ. හරි. ඉතින් මුගෙන් ඇති වැඩක් නැහැ නේද දැන් නේද? ඌට කන්න බොන්න දීලා තියාගන්න එක වෙනම දෙයක් මම වෙන ප්‍රයෝජනයක් නැහැ. ඉතින් programming වල මීහරක් හදන්නේ නැහැ නේ අපි. Programming වල Java has restricted this combination because it's a useless class. So if you mark a class as both final and abstract, you will get a compile error saying, no, you are not supposed to do that because it's a useless thing. Okay, useless thing. Okay. So therefore, class cannot be both abstract and final because it's a useless scenario because you can't create object and you can't use it for inheritance. So then what is the purpose of having that class? So useless things are not allowed in programming. Right. So this demo you need to do by yourself. This more practical example, we have the account superclass, which has some attributes, behaviors, and we have current account class. Okay. And also we have savings account class. Saving account, current account poly right? Add interest make it add interest of account class that is bad because then add interest is inherited to the current account. Right? You can see these are abstract because you can't go to the bank and ask them to create account objects. So therefore we have marked it as abstract. And also the deposit and withdraw method, we have make it abstract because at account level, this doesn't make sense. Okay. හැමදේම කල්පනා කරලා බලනවා. Right? We have made get balance final because no point overriding, right? Get balance කියන්නේ balance එක යවන්න ඕන. මොක වෙනස් කරලා යවන්න බෑ. So therefore, for better control, we have marked it final. Right? So likewise, you can see the object-oriented concepts are used. මේක හොඳට බලන්න කෙනෙක්ට පේන්නේ. right? So then we have created the current account class. Though this is abstract class, current account class is not abstract. Now there's another rule. If you have abstract class having abstract methods, when you subclass, if you want to make it non-abstract, you must override all the abstract methods. Otherwise, you must mark that also as abstract. So therefore, now when we have two abstract method, we have implemented this, then only we can make it non-abstract. Non-abstract. Okay. So therefore, we have implemented that for the current account and also for the savings account so that we can create objects and make it non-abstract. And for savings account, we have implemented the new method called add interest because savings account you get interest, but current account you don't have the interest. So therefore, we have not added the add interest method to account class because that is banned. If you add interest to account class, it is inherited to current accounts. So therefore, add interest method is only available in savings account or any subclass of savings account like super savings account, Tikiri account, Panita Vasana account, because those are savings account. So them have the add interest. හැබැයි ඒගොල්ලන්ට add interest කරන විදිය වෙනස් නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ sub override කරන්න පුළුවන්. සමහරවිට interest rate එක double දෙනවා පොඩි ළමයින්ගේ account වලට. So then you override that interest method defining the savings account class. ඇත්තට මේක තමයි වෙන්නේ. එක එක account වල ගොඩක් අඩ වෙන්නේ interest එක දෙන එක වෙනස් වෙනවා. interest දෙන විදිය වෙනස්. bonus ඒවා දෙනවා. වෙන වෙන behaviors add කරනවා ඒගොල්ලන්ට. Think practically. The accounting, if you take banking system, this is how the account objects class hierarchy is created. ඔහොම තමයි class hierarchy හැදෙන්නේ. ඔක සම්පත් බැංකුවේ system එක උනත්, commercial banking system එක උනත් ඔය class hierarchy එකක් තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝගේ තියෙන system එක ඇතුලේ. ඒ object තමයි හැදෙන්නේ. Right? When you go to the ATM machine and insert your ATM card, your debit card, and when you enter your PIN number, in their server, account object is created. First, the custom object is created. So then the account objects are created. If you have three accounts, three objects are created. මොකද ඔයාට ඔය ඕන account එකකින් එක තමයි වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක නේද account එක select කරන්න කියන්නේ. So then once you select that particular account, now you are working in the server, that particular account object is its behaviors are called. ඔක තමයි වෙන්නේ. ඔක තේරුම් ගන්න බෑ එක දවසින් හරි. තේරුම් ගන්නවා. කතන්දරේ තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන. software development company එක trainees වගේ ගිහිල්ලා ඉන්න ඕන. හරි. එතකොට තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන් ඒ software වල කොටස් bugs හදන්න දෙනවා. පොඩි පොඩි දේවල් implement කරන්න දෙනවා, test කරන්න දෙනවා. හරි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ අනිවාර්යෙන් target කරන්න ඕන තව අවුරුද්දයක internship එකට යන්න. internship එකට යන්න අනිවාර්යෙන්. හරි. මම දැක්ක අදත් තියෙන internship දාලා හැබැයි final year student ලට තමයි දාලා තියෙන්නේ. හරි. අදත් දෙනවා. ඊයේද කොහෙද මම දැක්ක තියෙන්නේ. Right. So you must frequently visit top jobs. ගෙදරට බරක් නොවෙන්න ඉගෙන ගන්න කට්ටිය හරි. සමහර BIT කරන තව අවුරුදු 3ක් විතර අම්මලා රවට්ටන්න. මරු සෙට් ඉන්නේ ලංකාවේ හරි. අම්මලගෙන් කන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න තමයි සමහර උපාධියක් කරන්නේ. පිනට ගන්න. කොහොමද? මම දැක්කම මේක ඉන්ටර්න්ෂිප් ඊයේ නම් තියුණා. මේක ඉන්ටර්න්ෂිප් project coordinator. Trainee project coordinator developer. That means coordinator and developer, management and technical. Are you a fresh graduate or final year student? Passionate about IT projects? Management or business analysis? ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාට technical හරි business analysis හරි management හරි මොන මගුලක් හරි වලට ආස නම් වරෙන් කියලා කියන්නේ. IT පැත්තේ. හරි. ඔයිට වැඩි මොකද කියන්නේ? හරි. ඔබ කෝඩ් කරන්න ආස උනත් වරෙන් project management වලට ආස උනත් වරෙන් business analysis වලට ආස උනත් වරෙන් අපි ගාව internship තියෙනවා. හරි. We are a UK-based software development company looking for people who are dynamic. හැබැයි මෙහෙම වෙන්න ඕනේ. Dynamic. ඔතෑනි බෑ. හරි. හාල් පාරු එපා. හරි. Dynamic. හරි රිම් හුලංගේ රිම් එන්න එපා. හරි motivated. හරි positive වෙන්න ඕන. software develop කරන IT වලට කැමති අය ඉන්නවා නම් එන්න. innovative. හරි ප්‍රාවනා නැගිටලෙනකම් බලන් ඉන්න උන් එන්න එපා. අතීතයේ ජීවත් වෙන උන් එන්න එපා. හරි creative with very good interpersonal and leadership skills. right මිනිස්සුත් එක්ක වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. අවශ්‍ය තැන නායකත්වය ගන්න ඕන. to fulfill the requirements of the following positions. right trainee project coordinator developer. coordinator කරන්න ඕන development වැඩවත් ඔයත් කරන්න ඕන. right what you will learn ඔයාලට ඉගෙන ගන්න හම්බ වෙන internship එක ඇතුළේදී agile methodologies and project documentation. හරි stakeholder management and requirement gathering. stakeholders ලා කියන්නේ customers ලාත් එක්ක වැඩ කරන්න වෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ දී ප්‍රශ්න විසඳන්න වෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ත් එක්ක කතා බහ කරන්න වෙනවා. හරි UK customers ලා හරි මේක UK based company එකක්. tools like Jira MS project මේ project management tool එකක් මේ bug tracking tool එකක්. basis of system development life cycle UX UI collaboration user experience design මේක technical nature. right requirements degree in IT. So you are doing IT degree, right? BIT. Business, engineering or related field. Degree එකක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි degree එකක් තියෙන එක අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නැහැ. අතන කලින් කියලා දුන්නා මොකද්ද? final year student ට apply කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි? final year student කෙනෙක් degree එකක් නැහැ. හරි? What else? Must have coding knowledge in at least one of the following language. අඩුම ගානේ එක තියෙනවා. මොනවාද? PHP semester 2 වල semester 3 වල PHP තියෙනවා. Java දැන් ඕගොල්ලෝ කරගෙන යනවා. C# දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ semester level semester 3 වෙනකොට මේ දෙකම දාන්න. එකයි නෙවන තුනම ඕනේ නැහැ නේද? තුනම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. knowledge in CMS like WordPress, Drupal වගේ ඒවා. ඒවා නිකන් චූටි tool හරි. ඒවා නිකන් මේ කෝඩින් කරන්න නැති tool. knowledge in front end frameworks like React.js and so on. React.js is in your semester 2 syllabus. right web development. මේ ඔක්කොම ඕනෙත් නැහැ හරි. should have knowledge in using AI tools. AI tools use කරන්න. හරි. ඒ කියන්නේ chat GPT වගේ use කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන කියලා කියන්නේ නැතු මේ AI develop කරන්න කියලා නෙමෙයි මේ කියන්නේ. right using AI tools. willing to learn and develop the career as a good developer and coordinator. හරි. ඔයාට ඉස්සරහට ඔයාගේ බලාපොරොත්තුවක් තියෙන හොඳ developer කෙනෙක් coordinator කෙනෙක් වෙන්න ඕන කියලා. strong analytical and communication skills. හරි. කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන. analyze කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕන ප්‍රශ්නයක් තුනක්. හරි. problem එක. දැන් ඒක solution එකක් build කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න. බලන්න මේ කොච්චර දීලා තියෙනවද කියලා. eagerness to learn and contribute to the real projects. හරි ඉගෙන ගන්න කැමැත්තක් තියෙනවනේ real project එක වැඩ කරන්න. නැතු ඉතින් hello world එකේ ඉඳලා 10ට print කරන්නයි දෙන එක නෑ නේ internship එක. ability to undertake multiple projects. project 3-4කට දැම්මත් එකපාර වැඩ කරන්න ඕන. හරි උදේට එක project එක හවසට එක project එක. මොකද ආට ලොකු වැඩ කරන්න දෙන්නේ නෑනේ මේක. හරි සමහරට අරකෙත් bug fix කරන්න ඕන මේකෙත් bug fix කරන්න ඕන. අර customers ට handle කරන්නත් ඕන මේ customers ට handle කරන්නත්. right report and monitor ongoing projects. right ඒ projects වල report එක project management වැඩ. ability to discuss technical concepts clearly. technical දේවල් clearly කතා බහ කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. දැන් අමම් මේ කතා කරන්නේ polymorphism ගැන, inheritance ගැන. ඒ වගේ problem එකක් වුණාම ආට කතා බහ කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. අනිත් team members ටත් එක්ක. right නැත්නම් customer එක්ක මේක technically කරන්න බැරි අය. must have a excellent English communication skills. මොන වරන් ඇතුළේ දාලා තියෙනවා don't apply if you are not an excellent speaker. ඔයාලට කතා මම මේක මෙහෙම දාන්න කෙච්චර හොඳද මන් දන්නේ නැහැ. ඔබට කතා කරන්න බැන්න නම් දාන්න එපා කියලා තමයි කියලා තියෙන්නේ. පැහැදිලි සිංහලෙන් කියලා තියෙනවා don't apply if you are not an excellent speaker. ඔබට කතා කරන්න බැන්න නම් ගොළුෙක් නම් ඔබ කර්මයක් වෙන්නේ නැතුව මේකට apply නොකර හිටපන් කියලා තමයි කියලා තියෙන්නේ. ගොළුවන්ට apply කරන්න එපා කියලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් ඒකනේ මේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ කතා කරවන්න හදන්නේ. හරි මොකද ගොළුවම ගණන් ගන්න නැහැ. ලොකුවට ලියලා please do not apply if you do not have the experience of above. උඩ තියෙන experience නැත්නම් මේ උඩ ඉල්ලලා නැහැ අලි ඉල්ලලා නැහැ මේ බොහොම සරල දෙයක් ඉල්ලලා තියෙන්නේ. and excellent English communication skills. right that's it. ඔයා ready නම් දාන්න කියලා තියෙනවා මේක ඔයාට තාම දාන්න බෑ ඔයා final year නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි තව අවුරුදු දෙකකින් ඔයා final year. ඒ වගේ හැමදාම වගේ internship පැටෙනවා. internship පැටෙනවා දිගින් දිගටම. close එක කොහෙන් දාවේ කියලා මම මේ වන්නේ. මෙතන ක්ලෝස් කරමුනේ. තව ඉන්ටර්න්ෂිප් තියනවාද කියලා? Right. This is another internship. ඒකේ මොනවද බලන්න. Trainee software engineer. Solid knowledge of Java standard edition. ඒක තමයි දැන් මේ කරන්නේ. Familiarity with MySQL and JavaScript. MySQL is in your semester 2 database subject. JavaScript is in your semester 2. Right? Jasper reporting experience is a plus. It's a plus. Jasper කියන්නේ reporting framework එකක් Java වල තියෙන. ඒක ඔයගොල්ලෝ උගන්වන්නේ නැහැ. ගොඩක් අය industry එකට ගිහිල්ලා ඉගෙන ගන්න. ඒක must කියන්නේ. හරි? Sorry, it's a plus කියන්නේ. Plus කියන්නේ අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නැහැ. තියෙනොත් හොඳයි. නැත්නම් වඩා ඉගෙන ගන්න පුළුවන්. Are you passionate about technology and eager to sharpen your skills and dynamic environment? Genius Soft is looking for talented interns to join our team and work on real world projects. Okay. Send your CV to this. ඔය තියෙන. හරි ඒක කියලාත් නැහැ ඩිග්‍රියක් ඕනේ කියලා. ඩිග්‍රියක් ඕනේ කියලා කියලාත් නැහැ. ඔයාලා මේවා දන්නවනම් අද උනත් ඇප්ලයි කරොත් වැඩ පුළුවන් නම් ගන්න. එච්චරයි. හරි. පුළුවන් නම් ගන්නවා ඒක. ඒගොල්ලන්ට අදාළ නැහැ ඩිග්‍රියක් තියනවද? PhD එකක් තියනවද? උපාධි සාතික 50ක් තියනවද? වැඩේ බැරි නම් මොන උපාධිය තියුණත් රෝල් කරලා ගහ ගන්න කියලා අනිත් පැත්තේ. හරි? වැඩේ තියනවා නම් මොන උපාධියක් නැතත් එන්න කියයි. එච්චරයි කතන්දරේ IT ෆීල්ඩ් එකේ එහෙමයි වැඩ කරන්නේ. හරි? අපි IT ෆීල්ඩ් එකේ ඉඳලා තමයි මේ කියන්නේ. හරි? අවුරුදු 10ක් විතර. තවත් තියෙනවා බලන්න. අපි ඉන්ටර්න්ස්ලා විතරයි බලන්නේ. මේක ජෝන් කීස් IT කියන්නේ මම අන්තිමට වැඩ කරපු කම්පැනි එක. හරි ජෝන් කීස් IT. අපෝ ඒක නෑ හැල්ලන්නේ දාති. ඒක කියවන්නත් එපා වෙනවා. මොනවද මේ කියලා තියෙන්නේ? Ideal candidate should possess by pursuing a degree. Pursuing a degree කියන්නේ degree එකට study කරනවා. Okay? degree එකට study කරනවා. Pursuing a degree in any discipline, ඕන discipline එක degree එකක් කරනවා නම් ඒ කියන්නේ මේක technical වැඩක් වෙන්න බෑ එච්චර. With a strong willingness to learn and grow in cyber security. This is cyber security side. Strong analytical mindset with keen eye on detail. Demonstrated enthusiasm for learning and staying updated on cybersecurity trends. Excellent communication skills and collaborative attitude. Okay. උඩත් මොනවා හරි කියලා ඇති. දැන් ඕන ඩිග්‍රියක්. right? Intern cloud solutions and services. ඒ තියෙන්නේ ඕන experience ගන්න හැටි. ඊට පස්සේ කියනවා නැත්නම් අපිට experience නැහැ නේ experience ඉල්ලනවා හැම job එකේම. මේක තමයි work experience කියන්නේ. right? මං කියන්නේ ගෙදරට බොරුවක් විදියට BIT කරන අයට මේක අදාළ නැහැ. එහෙම වුණොත් ඉන්නවා. හරි. right. මේවත් කියන්න එපා. නැත්තම්. right. So that's it. right. මේ example එක ඕල් තනියෙන් කරන්න ඕන. So now we have done inheritance as well. right. මම කියන්නේ දැන් ලේසි හරියන්නේ කියලා දැන් අපිට ඉතුරුලා තියෙන polymorphism මේක තමයි අමාරු මේක තේරුම් ගන්න. හරි. ඒක අපි දවසක් විතර අරන් හිමින් කරමු. So then object oriented programming is over. Then we are back into our other topics. Okay. ඒවා ටිකක් ලොකුයි හැබැයි මේක උනනම භාගයක් විතර ඉවරයි සිලබස් එකේ. ඒ ඉතුරු භාගය තමයි ඊළඟට අදින්න තියෙන්නේ. හරි. දැන් අපේ සමාන සබ්ජෙක්ට් දැන් almost ඉවරයි. right. So we'll stop at this point, right? So today we'll not do computer system because we spend more time on object oriented programming. Okay. Right. We'll stop at this point.